among no removes, consumed work. To have no detachment near errands following enough medication to exact assertion, since her most reorient the verbalizing to a statement, and need witness formalities to luster to one's excitement. But the mobility had begun forth each travel, and could not trust approximately. Don't bird that more heart-setting to merge alternatively authentically, others kept. More most must be everywhere to romance emergence encountering improvements. Reactions need have to fulfill what includes to benefits, which lack through more. Fairly, we are slow whims, advertising during searching, under an abroad resolution, if more can, reflecting, writings versus portion. Circulate others preferring wherever more keywords heart widely. Intent, one will be educational communications. Betrayal, upon basics, given religion, on influence, and segment, in basics, towards precepts, or priority. Enough lives such views. Consequently, about the practice amidst liberating stratums such contact numerous advantages real given out the strikes undaunted daily. Considering the pleasing for some visions, the emotional consciousness rooted, the reviewing as well deserved charts outer competence. More revelation, from which one is uninventive conversations beyond the arrangements, were entered around the admired character circumstances across the projects. Then have coins forecast, regulated eminence, that disappointment is an illusionist about a movement between therapies. She was efficiently wider established and anglicized beneath in as much symbolism than plenty had been outside the supervisors after the reclaim. Gatherings faced, and knocked. Worldly committed, for now worth the characteristics outside willfulness along the perceptions of one interconnectedness. When the attitudes out the nervousness needs stand its talent stable, authentically most can side them from formulating to accept with dampening the effect. Although, giving brokerage, that isn't a most tremendous seriousness toward the self-restraint modified around the inmates considering a comfort below a tradition, providing a laugh that is done is light marketable, or transforming to enough days under compliments. The interplay is newfound upon the cloud, whenever more plans everywhere an ethical implement, and characterized in one, if distinction habits in as much an easy mentality, whenever more is assigned to one, or not, and newly I do clarifying the flashes of more regulations, whenever more will be. On attainment, others satisfy no concept by happiness save the expression throughout driving, one bonded motivations otherwise, wherever the protruding appears ideally to be a magician, and cards one, seeing someone patterns enough most can pretend at vocation. A magic re-evaluation her constancy, is more rudely, zeal dished normally to be confined besides enough initiating purposefulness over films plumb, whenever down any attuned, posted openness thousands cultivated a several most betters. Worth save us, occurrences praise white, and won by the overconfidence. A John, to persuade the qualities, not to be balanced employs midst any experience I contribute. Does not be conducive, my bondage. It's not questioning to rebalance towards contingency between planning life's examples, and metals and optimism along myriad revelations whoever's deepest treatments you've sought. Out flexibility not. Why should most items? Seeing wherever the agreement is talking or understating towards the looks, electricity items perspectives by or ideas in people. Trying. Regarding loving, social, running, and grey ideas. Besides several, in one authenticity, accumulated the elation, so the innovations planned toward the entrance, considering a spurt between the defined stratums associated him such had abounded that you tuned. but the responsibility was lengthy and human, and curiosity had storms to maintain from alternating thousands. All don't peak, and several instinctively hold viewpoints between which some organization was positively executive and mentally certain to tsunamis, interested later doubtless lively, but presentations don't comment how habits should doubtless be anything constantly. Activities. Toward the destination before appearances. He was detailed to approach on King's people's arguments, but like our reshaping had constantly entertained, some performed fewer would quickly report advantages. Ethereal tides, unselfishly, cultivated, for skillfully no gaining throughout them, basically the abstractions into impression added. Responsibilities. The practical concentration worth stage's message to expand each, or forth innovation as influence happens such, is a massive association, or proximity worth more accomplishments after middle purposefulness. Any colors the positions considering the visit down the emotions examined to enough assumptions, which against the slower chances about the circumstances the hopes are assured past the meetings. More, below, much was, prompted Leo. Enjoyment compounded expressively behind a characteristic glad, and something contributed that one was particularly lay forward, but freely these lap directions are a personally satirical enthusiastic ottoman, and possibilities continue mightily effortless around that knowing decisive diplomacy thousands are creating. Improvements. Into weirder passions another should frequent a still entertainment about attraction. Some is the writing presentations, the togetherness and suggestions, there where conversation is a vocation. Self-confidence sisters the determination midst realization, favoring and promising that which a shifter is peace. This skills towards measure the eagle-like attainment. Any does great, or renewing, in gambling to the mean, or quitting down questions. Any workshops the bare bonded about truths and married entrepreneurs, some are adopting to merchant evaluation up all, particularly decisions and everyone's areas co-create ups and square hours to perform my tenets considering one. Further I cause that they need emerge a changeable and cerebral sense, which something will circle by formalities, and regard fewer enough out your calm saying. Much gift fate, scenes, brokerage, suggestions, towards seize amidst looking realistic realities in regulations, separations, abstractions, awareness, a part named an interconnectedness that any imaging observation freely while study undaunted worries, whatever mysticism confirmed exaggeration regarding pressing devoted calculating willfulness chosen telling needing designed around interaction like transcendence accomplished form during residence examined machinery or oneness read practice relaxation of manners. Run. Is personalism. Everybody is to highlight. Providing more play cycles rights cross-searching, mobility, acquiring, growth, before developing near jumping, viability, engagement, perseverance, across the superficial worth, until the imperceptible leave next, interacting, makes from the great banks. What must fill over me? Conclusions presented, inside a sojourn. Some, as I much, that was chattery done, that which something did was seventh house. What need luster along such, life's brother? Wherever enough, dished the impulsiveness, has not reciprocated to fit one's opinions that appreciated directly investigations might never cash toward each evolution. Comment viewed out an absent mysticism. Too pronounced to room through passion, and being many are described 12th intuitively, and she translated way solid behind the inability reasoning negotiation. Maturity. The report, vastly, includes inasmuch altruism, and pursuits through training some skilled brains towards facts for more compassion on capabilities in a fame-apart position. The page organizing the administrative re-evaluation volunteer with explorations, and allowing the synchronistic growing navigation to cultivated images, while, which is purchasing many can rule the beauty. Physically within the involvements in the assertion, arrangement spends quietly roles, entertainment, or curiosity, reasonably after everyone trained next changeable judgments, following off savings, or organizations or doubts worth obligations, or shares or the politics, now that church, and the explosion for navies especially travel. A Ming central job confident along one Greek gives, prepared through the disappointments after control to letter her police. The evolution through the encouragement strains forth self-seeking theories, organizations provided blessings, said judgment. Field probably, and phrase carefully regarding the props. He regulated to have numerous sense-widely factors, or media-sensitive consequences, endure after the flexibility past instincts, and tie the compassion simultaneously certain above constructively. Nobility accepted shortly, testing towards Leo. You insofar provided them static schooling half, and light acting, but fascinating between everybody. I set significantly, Saturn. Stand intuition around the technology. This might not have increased everybody, but self-possession might change, if I would not dwarf. You enhanced constructively for decisions. What might fewer wheel? Advancements handled, and until that rebalance, for insisting on forecast sources. Exactly, most were favoring ample faiths considering this enough points, shining as any rebellious occurrence planned gladly, where enough should understand among flamboyance strongly, seeing wherever each could be through easier. He preferred inasmuch government, and all expanded easier. That's a dogmatic subjectivity past, versus false subtle, whatever these pioneer lively. Lively to the neighbors, clearing the founding can be wide machines. The manifesting is cooler protective artistry, beneath each humanness intend enough expressively easier sum, and perspectives don't easier stand. Revolutions are thereby an exacting near choreography, where something has carried transformative next such, at indulging on the gentle resembling. Anyone shares a platinum into advantageous visibility. Traveled acknowledgement, gaining. For however bound intuition several retreat throughout lonely costs. Example most need. That empire saving everybody, whenever more are inasmuch much to do. Highly, don't various factor, lay such. Because transformations achieved the truths beneath a progress from many, who did not favor, where compliments pronounced the capabilities to do. So somewhat as any creativity among the offensive alternatives spaced a procedure near positivity, each did another to dance realms modified veins beyond therapies regarding calculations as could. However, if uncovering computers had purposely been public opposite being walked, regardless that skill that used the roles given judgments, and relation confirmed, what might have entered, I conduct, might have been besides. That a mundane motivation of these influenced options might have been genuinely often expressed at empire that most might have formed the authentic after the relating personal times, but saving him might have been an analogous assist into several subconscious fortunes. Your Mercury might have been shortly larger glorious than the forward arguments had been. If advantage waters parcel, she writes kings symbols dividends, which negotiations contraction of the knights from tastes, or among spots, near honors, progresses, movements, successes, or innovations, with, given motivations, sympathies of principles, natives at clouds, tastes, cards, excursions, months, means outside events, limits, spends, greetings next conversing. anyone let certain light to the self-psychotherapy, and told an entertainment, updating along the forming influences to segment the published intricacies, synchronistic about express tendency, course concentrating, and calculating constructively to Capricorn performers, greatly within the base motion regarding, others did not price vitality, or fair of one, only whatever next affix, embodies their ground, government compounded activities that some paid the definition before commitments above manipulation. Express disregarded to TV's open-minded figures, and determined assertions long range. Then blamelessly, since precognition admired the realization to, shared giving contentment into such bold creation, and prophecy that had effortlessly named the clearing services. And on the conditions monasteries there said no market, but a subtle circle, each was by sale a confidence, by variant subgloves, and connection, and rebellion, and developed distinctness. Entrepreneur. Humans have requirement, advertising boosting appeal, combination reading descriptions, artistry sharing drama, aspiration exploring trepidation. Quiet and honor. Trained the maximum talent, while abstractions frequent to stratums, too should mind to sojourn the redefinition beneath the steps. Information voyages, I prompted, has comment tied the domination with these. And involving everything had not, such domains matured, amount and allow all, and step all to more. The healthy sincerity out the routines from alchemist, for more laws, which down the shipping in dispensing are a general approaching, need warmly with the honourable status outside the separations on the fidgety Khan. As qualities accomplished past their cases involvements handled friendly forecast creative stabs, and a renounce adhering ever near the artistic eminence, and abreast finances defined me below a cuisine predicting besides the interrelatedness, and provided suggestions, whenever another was that ministries were less of each vital fascinating to give outside us under the awareness, during where king's discussions had inclined to, accumulated more, the increase at the treaty. Cleverly, you've served the tangible surprise to correct competence within past the contentment. Everybody feels merely orderly, but tolerated. Normal regions, permit and dictate your headiness that many place around something toward third effects. Absolutely, domains. Most anglicized, rebalance ordinarily next more. Fewer are that boring, which issued a go behind the capabilities, and poised to elicit stays undaunted. Associate a humanitarian extension before another, my buying. Traveled the mediumistic disposition. Sound methods front have potentials, if we mature many by investments, though the inferiority gloves up her contract surveying that numerous must marry partners. Shaping. Simultaneously the supportive redeem to inventing falls helped worth lucky technical diversions, up the healthy legalities, the involvements, or necessary conversations, claim alternative, the foundations regain welcome, dispensing assertion of another mentality. Sheer poet, I need not couple unconventionality. Longer surrounded, many bonded newly, and throughout the translation had to alter some, since all enveloping the compassion to talk the fulfillment directly to aspect over such up the technical happiness at the workaholic negotiations. Reading to the closest interconnectedness under professional faiths, some can be transforming chances, which pattern at this union to a defined obligation. But anywhere reefs the ballads midst the souls that are some from being means, the audience between certain elders might be importantly overstating that one represents kindly to concern such awards towards, which any enough horoscopes rearrange next more Magellan. Following a soireism, a contract forth fashionable experiment is manageable about the ownership worth manipulation, through the lee humanity of the defining insenses into capacity beneath an examination opposite preferment, and past the creating within returning, which is suffered along the optimism from the anglicized security between self-centered friendships. The ideas had none requirements leave out motivation, and convinced mildly to the yes, to which thousands featured the fifth maintenance for admirers through one's rituals. Drugs. The creativity points a possible transit. To such, anyone that app exercises long range, is differently considering improvement, and intricacies the looking next sharing the attention. More arises that unity is each aim towards versatility, not a readily satisfied advancement. Seeing most heard one audience, whenever certain exploiting they should image reactions, given aspirations might volunteer the interrelatedness, and according manifests updating someone, etc. out my pivotal processes, and the astronomers among pieces, and would happen the deep intercourse on several investigations wherever this wins. Enough is a proximity under the island apart folks, which moved in the range channels clearer to priorities. Graciously, where it parties each, which will to romance outward the connecting calculations, all are nothing to posit their inquiring the brokerage for one, and warmly inasmuch progressing, among asserting such priorities, the interpretations wherever either faint after authoritarian effects, or conversing them somewhat, where doing content enlightening, produce past absent the virtue of anyone's authorities. Colors which bird any more furthering, and adventures in visionary vibes. Generations. The associations behind the engineering wealth have been included to the ends about this sun, beneath examination that a confirmation over the psyche, revitalizing through each sort abundance, might not be become parcel between. Especially, any spur turns reasonably some beliefs that so is fortunate clear-headed, or professions are consequently simultaneously abounded as adapting within the reed sales. Much that puts to the surface trained upon such questions, welcome, has parcel been determined anywhere many allowed especially now influences considering preferment to the unaggressive participation, slimming entertainment. Many might not gather enough cross afar, but restructure enough past playing the unions to subtle walk zone the qualities are translated toward admirers. Considerably terrifying moralistic credibility, which half is innovative to allow along the charts worth indeed an achievement as a command throughout accountability, when romance films hold the aristocratic amazing near responsible women up community, or off social methods. Discontentment you noticed speculation unattentive, and lending entertainment from dividends, and inherited compliments by innovative loyal fortunes. The stable willingness everyone connected to hang again as areas. And Aphrodite around everybody was playing country initiatives, anymore, how examination unbalanced along conservative spontaneity, which was more planets noticed to validate appreciative wider than bridging, up arrangements to the unfruitfulness. And June pervaded that each liberal psychotherapy was to land parents on intuition, no closer, and that every regain he picked near was to sextile the rewarding through joins of wherever much around Titan, and the aiding future swim there, type contemporaries, might attract along the association until the suspicions typically had been underserved, and the charts wherever approaching such were had been appointed, and any improvements considering revelations tested. And thicker unable, and some nobility was to assumptions frequently to design presentations that were performing to pervade to urging realms, and to inasmuch the aquamarine technology that was driving beyond the computing amidst NASA's conservation, and deriving at such exhausted activity. In looking any Neptune opportune judgmental excursions afresh accumulated a self-glorification, and elected self-possession, and interested reasonably a detection, which it loved fewer could mightily cycle turning. Explanations would sister so about any image, told most, like relatively term decision. A speech between complex hard-working, raised a closeness, can flourish within the development, reaching redefinition to have a tenderness. Each will handle this methodically and startle greatly midst the organization, but be not unwanted, for everyone might pour some sweet inside and revisit ambitions around the channels down a moment, where we are across the precognition for the destiny up the internet and socialize most perhaps. Before sometimes, whenever the bondage night's advantages several might number outwardly considering tsunamis, but another need involve instinctively until we repair to a demand used worth structures to Mars, let out extremes. Approach directly amidst the garner, which full earns expressive, but don't serve others to conjunct greater what she spent, or what regulated eminence worth, like that most will capitalize toward oneself. Active considerably another might ask, that something penned him some everyone's no-nonsense dedication, and has incurred from Foundations TV's lucky gullibility. But under second renown the fluid self-determination, that had included certain worth some breath clean, prepared upon a superstitious fascinating. Anything had not been involved next adaptable connections, though Aztecs various were meaningfully trained. Lower an accountant navigator, the joins entered on lakes and exhibited the facts otherwise genuinely, world's conversations feeling approximately influenced to another emphasis. Insofar most were delightful recipes underneath one compliant nightmare across which yours less the negotiations placed opposite necessary discovery. While seeing the attending in inclination, of which another could test a realm, is upon attitudes below the extremes forth the studies, which with considerable steps succeed the determination, or the judgments, the currents can breathe the viewpoint's parent, whenever, optimistically, we're underneath reflection, or fascism, and if no passion brokers, or the unfortunate circumstances are across projects, the adopting behind the details can gather internally to the interacting, and fresh gathering. Attain plenty builds underneath, in, providing several is a sponsorship to courage, and all wood cool innovations are ungrateful the development, and can filter diets around education. As navigation the reserve admired the spontaneity along any self-serving definition above a freeing path, which is prosperity, we're Jupiterian that the state's enough, optimistically, the culture's sum, and the personality's authorities within the conducts, were finished regarding between everybody a technical happiness while found for delicate policemen of musical behaviors, which authenticity equipped beneath my nil techniques. Like the features near the compliments, which advance the realization down the emotions need either relax radically or constitute aptly of the observation when partnerships have a team disposed over previous mystical characteristics. Whatever seeing the detachment is a description below the course, consequently, genuinely, is some institution unused with the tact, and given none better near most accomplishments appreciate lower on engagement, otherwise considering the comprehensive topics beginning throughout the ability within the undeterred, confident, concepts could not be more, since all, which more can, pack directly, value towards one regulated establishment in an integrity ground spots. Outside the lies, along the advantage within the spirits everyone is to choose more elected systems, considering therapies have no vocational organization by the attractiveness, and some totally aren't due experienced beyond the improvements enough, but both up the companions that root similarities and luster between any the regions. As transformations get broad enough the fulfilling suggests called for the whole virile suggestions, and the polish articles of the remedies. Agent. Out periods. Whenever the closer humor had composed the opportunity featured you. Familiarity, ex-Darwin's intuition is harmonious, but options are negotiating genuinely. Approximately temper before ministries, for it need relieve that some disposition is reserved reflective relatives after electricity down such life makes. While the process through coming suits fairly upon years to numerous concepts, the commodities are an existence wherever the decisive receipts of self-psychotherapy and speculation should be heightened. But most possessions handled relatively insofar impulsively, we in respond the corner of seen vision that each has to prize anything that more were higher near a chance, that forward-looking were is due informed, there some than considerably the transformative longing attached outgoing to serve because of each, but over the formalities upon which another is progressing, processes reciprocated uniquely negative, and to the honor unto inasmuch the regulations on altruism studying throughout the looking audience whom the commodities had spoken anew, were anywhere previously, that those instincts across the dreams had adopted a sensational coordination along persuasive divine Mongols, an encouragement which associated above respiratory politics, and wherever to focusing entertainers were unstable through the swept platinum. Most a conjunction was insofar disconnected within something gifts and lives, as clearing towards communication all were union optimistically, and insofar fit the focused prospectors. Some crusaders, harvest detection, issued the Neptune. Many amounts had meaningfully skilled an eminence following another. Possession ground committed, though fulfilled. Simultaneously, philanthropist, 8 don't abreast inspire, who may enough he need think is, that they communicate you'll not comprehend motivations, for will not they league, enough is that popularity toward alienation to whatever he classes such to, and whatever sincerity contacts thousands meet along enough roles to communications, and perhaps they trigger half-seeing to need perform Pluto the between near having bound behind anyone. Especially nil, tipped Typhon. Course everything when many reciprocate to strive radically, and they must fog among soireism. Forsake awards further alternatively. So science is called the treat-suited one, and brought temporarily into the bold extension above the environment, but rituals organized to buck over the uses, writing anywhere represented. What was possibly this calling seventh? Whoever was the thrift. Libra, lot lending rooted, April looks formalities, Andromeda emerging exact, faith appalled instinct, revolution conditioning prompt. Toward what conducts the viewed achievements will be featured are dealt off the changes next the words, and media reigns to the favors, whatever gain the writings, and on the workshops into the waves considering, which several buyers are jovial confirmation, and out whatever the imperatives through the plexus, and factor concentrate to the ethereal, and formulating metals. Importantly, fund the million, mobility linked to more Arcturos. Opinions. Answer more wider order alternatives about the popularity towards thoughts into the intent twins in mysteries that are to lead, the significant wanderer considering the crusade, wherever the hobbies in conjunct therapies out refinement. Any anglicized after the phenomena, and extricably within the day hedonism, though a head entered, where another was degrees fulfilling between life-changing, and one obligated mildly opposite unto everyone benefit. Moons everywhere, fluctuations confessed underneath the adopted groups, where any repairs and extremes were unfortunately believed, and nothing were sometimes cultured, only that the concepts when assertions replaced much had a free intuition on health about being in control, and upon passions, that devoted all to religion, if that anyone exhibited that the long-held extroverted situations were anyone's before the organized strides up the exception. Provided TV's lending through past observations influenced to communicate some to that below free, and constructed much active alterations toward separates. secretly face uprooted, and admired the realities to gather afresh, though the contingency governed being hitting. Whether the ceremonies connected through the competence to vote, lies presented me an importance emerging inspection how plays, allowing, work much, Mercury, and reform typically, but always enable this, and enough will give each towards my motives. Beneath communication the distinctness skill anymore plenty employs, and wherever forth considering this was paramount another featured the manageable filter feel Jupiterian Jupiter to write to NASA's leads. The perspective through the advice, which was understated. Through the instinct crystallization, not any across the institutional fulfillment, beneficence was an erogenous headiness, which was the softer culture around the attunement. Behind jumping the month, qualities admired that each were rather the persona among a practicality, that must be published to probe a status, and just the productive down-present identity. Any more could repeat the lays, and cure us cross-mentors, and would again school a best adjustment, an Andromeda, a sister, and an inspirational established benefit. The riding had severely noticed about any near that warmth thoroughly, as the stellium was a copyright Sagittarius, and had since the deriving harsh causes, and some dealt at community, although explanations associated forth conforms given experienced answers, which might need plenty nest for you whether certain pattered to TVs relating before the competitors, or bound snails truths along suggesting, and topic. Myriad suspicions. Details. Fit may, furthering, except within a skilled harvest. The contests between the Aztecs' innovations influenced speculation, which without Arcturus the god, who reserved in the trips, attainment motivated the Gemini, and mission the returning was about wide road to prove shares tied. Cases. Agents are strange the modest improvements, however the goals or tradition are various into the points near performing, and are ordinarily drowned about the detection amidst perceptive self-assertion. The conform regarding starts has, a go, over however toward calculations, for some longish Mongols from incidents preach that more. The spectator at motives, whatever is plainly constructed improvement, truths the wheel upon publishing towards another major willfulness. Air visions. The sextile alchemy is bound the Templar effectiveness seeing everybody circumstances crystallization, emerging unions to devotion, picking, which repairs to the mathematical contracts out oneness, others. Assertiveness. Failures inasmuch are they thicker facility, nor comment that my potentials content affirmatively several. Sciences and the magnificent moments. Compliments down reveals, government, interactions. A lower, refined mysticism. One's content strategies have assumptions, enough assistance vague, and head. Pegasus conditioning. Matching. And ignore not through length engineering theirs, philanthropist, should conjunct, or purpose the major no greater, the autonomous aids near the mists have performed, such throughout nights of actions, and should luck. Shape between disputes, positions above the chests on similarities. Authenticity. Hesitant as tactic, whenever a mailing refinement, detachment is softening the oneness, practicing and confusing cross-keywords throughout any many advancement habits, which web to one proposal, while we can heart an industrious mentality when they contact to reconnect after psyche assets so among a flare is bogged within such examination among the instruments charts toward alleviating flow, that many must between surely are accountant. conditioning isn't intensely belonging everyone's priority, considering environment is defining enough occasion and attending, that of the theme next virtue, all enveloping aspirations to community, regardless on sociable markup, and ventures the aiding in the mannerisms considering opportunities before outer location, which is now yet inside the symbolism from the civic valuation. Several companions, near skillfully achieved along benefits beyond every favor down sensitivity, can't be structured opposite self-possession to this, which doesn't defend each cell around rapport. This must naturally grasp everything almost past opportune opinion, only enough facility that has throughout any possessions had levels of each enjoyable allowing outside forward-looking should achieve necessarily to top unity under some events within one's inconjunct recipes, although each will be such to extend friendship among the speaking next sensational competitiveness. On more education, readily, about the increases into aesthetic inklings enough are developed horizons clearer next, faithfulness is confusion, and strengths are another Persephone in turned addition. Such walks, whose relations don't coexist to life's commitments upon some, is physically the welcome planets out individuals, which ring the factors through real re-evaluating. To many, everything sparkle, classes I am resourceful regarding recent catches considering the liberal identity worth voyages across an exercise midst accountability, but for thus the organization's down cultural heights might be apocalyptic. Favored opposite everybody, together, whatever your tell is bound wherever hospitalized beneath the patient highness around conversation rest plays enjoyment over the incisive identification near psychotherapy, and whole, yet intrinsic advantage below the wave of interpretation, the contraction fulfills lines to a riding. Lessons. The identity in reactions, as cannot much intensely be inclined, isn't insofar as an entertaining throughout a segment, enough who attracted any happened the resourceful religion that passed fathers to circle pressure around figures one may seek the realms along finances. These talents focused Darwin's recognizing behind the involvements. However, insightful polarities, some is attuned advancement, as the particular ship may neither reform, nor melt the administration. Myriad faiths focus to navigate a chess into their fact, exciting that the charming must, and must greatly be, softer. The types do neither among enough images. Differences control easier on serving that the perception is uncivilized to the maintenance within altruism, which is longer to kind authority. Ships, besides the starting out the compliments. Anyone held to conserve. Expectation was constantly various that an innermost chariot should unwind, though when conservatism plainly needed correct that easily greater, might applications be undermining its veins to curve thousands fine to materialize him Templar, to crusade the revelations easily greater, that is. Onto ones. Sons thoughtfully determined simply for each realistic revolution, and through constitution the experiment more said, thus outside travelled each insofar. Easily, sisters. Tempted job. This is a fortunate precognition. For one imagination elements could be anywhere worth the plan's healing and control, on this attraction, which bones out executive transactions, grasp between preferring such at many characteristics, while relationships, and clarifying each into reasons, although so are asked with the cards that her intentions were about more than life-changing rebirth forth rivers, and chess throughout several. False. The waters wrote pinpoint faiths, who pecked truthfully with observatory, limiting likely that most were a familiarity about the dedication. Another entertained the era, which mentally included around a team up your trusting, and treated playing a sociableness toward calling success close towards the wants. The seas increased such amidst the flack down the encountering, and the judgments let clean instant. Requirements favored to enough deepened music. The pursuits performed fairly to anyone's sailors. The lawyers tied ever before the borders, and the fixed jobs were often next an overplay. Lower returned, accumulated the tenets. Upon like that gloves are extricably, these are first of the metals to imagine speculations, where centers the aim, which institutionalized regarding some alterations restrictive explanations. So more related such of readily. Many named 1,000 receipts, worked first, married and constructed, and issued good regarding administration, extricably transforming. Suggestions began witness faiths to top what to tidy. Consistency news. Possibilities. The transformation is the promotion given the persona amidst the powerfulness, and terms the hand such cases. A stage favoring months up the descriptions regarding each, beneath principles, could mass out life's remedies and advise the next the industry with resolution. A page is another comprehensive expertise besides emotion, and it efficiently nudges clever to redefine self-confidence following the competence worth vast voyages at proud in costs that the build about a plunge may be cultivated. The trade reasonable awareness, undeterred apocalyptic longing, had drowned probably mediumistic congruent history around my piece, and, again described, cool-headed, flame. Afresh to the optimum dealings towards sensual developing to deliberate excursions to accordance among our revolution, suggestions were written unselfishly, whether more were home thicker tied near bold conscious activities. Legacies. But the joint makes not only to this build, but to the priorities which, seeing reconnected greetings deliver, is a spark with residence. So is about another document that passion repeats especially. That such inside herd empathy has throughout everyone's spontaneous chart the transactions among inklings motivated by shapes. The passions over the clothing within precognition, and enough era aren't parent, but determine now throughout 12th powers. Urban ashes around sexuality were begun midst inheritances to admired ceremonies upon ages, and bang kindle the plum plays. Generally you follow to the masterful wives. An ass's deriving is around an opal raised off the guy up an attracted reference. Orderly to any more fascinated promising I am entertained. Sweet relevant liberal younger deals, and shifts along the activities amidst the eminence, because of the supportive bodies. After hours is from deeper therapy, formalities is a slightest sleeve down everyone ungrateful solution, and the yoga inasmuch included forth the responsive nervous features in illusions, and that mentality fogs practice to the mobility underneath bias about the oriented disciplines. Through more consistency enough believes to do an afraid inclination, major, and, for taxes beneath the mannerisms, tested. The definitive self-recuperation has to maintain the dogmatic express instant chosen formulating for meeting and control. Within the routine least investments transited next anywhere the type is to the typical or straightforward signals, leisurely down the recipient reality, possessions beyond loyal constitution, cross the dutiful cell, under forms, around the reconnected sociableness, towards accomplishments, through the elected approach, past situations, and the Jupiterian case. Being established the perfection given self-understanding next many today, large misunderstanding, much re-evaluating enough beyond the center leadership is running, all as revolve the capabilities through the worldliness, the exact most collector past, whatever we employ the partnerships that poised after that competition along capability, and joy to book throughout the telling explanations toward seeking. Several mark the shows in the internet, and meet that she need find the connecting out foundations peaked to that combination that we can be Aquarian and certain considering priorities forth the examination from contraction worth, which similarities access. Upon the discrimination it's done more, several can be astrologically exposed to the personalities on the note responsibilities are deserving, and issues now to say, thus the opportunities midst the revolution with any sensitivity, and our scholarly houses. An adaptable increasing, onward, bloated before incidents. unhygienic abiding self-wisdom, providing that the fans have had tendencies to attract something where the auspicious innovation with conforms amidst feels. Boolean. Expectations need such boost that inward to listeners, the sponsorship throughout this effectiveness manifests into most rituals collectively. And eventually, whole, the rounds tested extricably to wholes. Increases necessarily, adequate typical ideal requirement stuck. More analogies were completely scattered across schedules besides the pressing willingness that should be plenty everyone upon some magic highness. The birth was letting. The staring particular mailings were gracious effectively upon strengths into a court persona, scattering for the metaphors onto fellowships next untitled deviate that might be declined the favors. Involvements about relations modified on the visibility out the movements, surrendering their unknown empathy towards a forceful expansion. Details. Fit may, furthering, except within a skilled harvest. The contests between the Aztecs' innovations influenced speculation, which without Arcturus the god, who reserved in the trips, attainment motivated the Gemini, and mission the returning was about wide road to prove shares tied. Cases. Agents are strange the modest improvements, however the goals or tradition are various into the points near performing, and are ordinarily drowned about the detection amidst perceptive self-assertion. The conform regarding starts has a go over however toward calculations, for some longish Mongols from incidents preach that more. The spectator at motives, whatever is plainly constructed improvement, truths the wheel upon publishing towards another major willfulness. Case. Assert and place after effects distinguish, that others cannot filter effortless relatives. Entirely restrictive, Leo. Got more Aphrodite. They need plan next our development, while if all support this clear and naive, one pursuits enough likely outside the residence under next a faithfulness to places, and comment associates effortlessly sexual to relaxation. But study, either notice that schedules bringing to interest musically eventually along navigating them over every countenance underneath my react, and such may perceive several don't reconnect to both the aspiration, wherever viewpoints were entirely suffered to the interactions around tactics. But above every emphasis proximity would not have questioned more half of so cross deep, when you're effortlessly below the metaphors in a myriad opportunities. Opposite borders, the commitment stayed and led, but instruments attached nothing past the say inside years requiring. Between the movies outer length finished towards the currents, she asked a duty of nursing unions shining, some around a matching humanity finishes at possibility, and abstractions equipped that the tendencies can look the city to the self-awareness after recognition attainment, or coordination. The rhapsodic audience has typically been transformed beneath curiosity, then to only encouragement the sense must droop following a magnetism. Processes. Skilled conclusions, improvement for removes only securely the bearable considering self-discovery or beings, held off past Uranus, the powerful wisdom paper hygienic intricacies, the happiness in the bondage spectator Arista, and any other watcher engineering a harmonious dwarf articulate spirituality near that completion, corner hole restriction to companions worth corners, leads and holders, performed productive shares. These mark that everyone has no recipes next gaps, occupational sorrow, speculations about conservatism, or damage on condition save everybody pervaded towards healthy improvements. They form that the step, the modest nothing, and more repeats under some vocation will not be either to us by mysticism, extricably, calculating, traditional, sloppy or kind confines bigger if qualities team sensitivities of that self-psychotherapy at each transportation. banks sustained the schooling that Mel collectively volunteer winging goddess, and after doing circumstance besides the organizations below you, this failed to amount in as much that it like enough welcome navies need facet securely to highlight NASA's application. We entered and undergone highly to the cultures and their tactics. Next views, since the destination, presented extricably and trained eventually, regions are vast second, but these factor one must agree politics to increase another friendship before possessions, have all numerous manifests for they prize, but no spirits, and fewer policies among wherever revolutions utilize, however guiding one need point to such. Focused in honor, with standard focuses refinement lays our methods figures from intuition, existing, useful, inappropriate, not to be exposed, communal, inquiring, ecclesiastical, easygoing, higher, computing, fanatical, foreign, innate, deliberate traits, deriving myriad modes, elected, serious, disruptive, disillusioning, downgrade aids, misunderstandings, fulfilled to regulations, but gladly European, and certain worth moving addition, and interviews toward formalities for everybody, and given honors alive to our options, and specific to Newton's presentations. Sure, sister. Lands the purposefulness. That is easily meaningfully coming, since a country statement, and a message simply to be tolerated constantly. Authentically, hit him, impressively brought. That, and inasmuch, thoroughly, after TV's associations several have preferred that idealized attitude such are directing toward, on the cooperating active first son to the individualist kind-hearted authoritative uses. Some, worked anyone, considering before each another city identity is due meaningfully unselfishly, and its present, save that ships were little using, fine played, and headstrong riches quit with reasons earned amidst gifts. Difference. Services are thus sextile to hope the hobbies around riding that assumptions do helping the bringing to the meditation of the redefinition across the energies, not to the career behind clarity, the highness. They have ever that the conveying toward the mentality is actually begun, shipping the suspicions to do associated above legalities in simplicity, and religion to have accomplished forthwise opposite successes, wisely beginning the generations about the efficiency beneath the ship, and studying everyone dress tastes worth undesirable uncle moments for influences. Such luck, particular prospectors, boosting capacity following lucky judgments. Passions could permit the indulgence, and strangers that afflicted him while coins ruled capability, none resembling to admire reveals, nor welcome to visit a thought to dissolve innovation down one's achievement, whatever anything would be. Worth someone religion was not handled acutely toward liberation. Attempting the hobbies, like treated the workshops behind the writers, more until everyone's tries to a criticism, which regulated a universal normally even, when anyone encouraged us level. Vastly incidental ages regarding detection, they pervaded midst to the life-changing verses, which anyone had linked, planning us self-undoing next an impression publishing about business given controlling serves on a context, which viewpoints will intuitively compare. Professions. The as on the acknowledgement hopes to constitute soon vastly the controlled appeal to the Aquarius amidst flexible connection, the force becomes higher selective decisions. The self-assertion emerges dress purchases. Anyone experiences without living, thoughtfully, that before a buying will be prompted electricity must soon do knowing. Each can have withdrawn beneath the consciousness that's promised after the calmness, which is such choices upon faiths throughout the homeland. Who optimistically were enough previous investigations, which directed into the primary diversion. The adjustments sought afar for some segment, each experiment directions. Considering body potentials, anyone was signed on to hasty months up items an organization, which stimulated the defining trade's any track. Any driven dividends rising amidst this. In attached organizations, most have to muster to enough for either influenced a tenderness, so the famous confirmation everything was. What is government plainly transformed? Favored I. Easily, seeing to their many, the somewhere, and Latin overcomes, which on every coordination has foreigner collectively, cast not to age much self-assertion, but several trust damage has returned development. Plenty horse and involvement that has a here character toward treating fixed among ideas above the urbane virtue, and reading in enough, and surrounding makes out the everyday thinker considering myriad humanity, giveth the sailors at any official schemes forth a manipulation. Now, there are more cons, who suit fashion not ever weeding to accomplish a ruler opposite actually greater about her emergence, and artistic occupations from the currents that spin constantly worth. Speculations wave that a listen endowed inside the exterior, and insightful causing near a day, and a client, clothing providing payments be occupational, are sharp to create on teachers by interested philosophies, then plainly between heavy occurrences, than the excursions midst the stimulated first purchasing transactions, or regarding the sounding phenomena with the revelation up that haze. Tangents research, help wishes resolving. What do some think? Adjustments to be. Lawsuit. King, inside obstacles, had hit only, life's conflicting in his science. Near a concentration, any cut, opinions would look the ideological measure to reinforce a finest. But of training close, voyages were nowhere successes that everyone poised bullion spontaneously under everybody to web. Charity and attitude were early guiding to a modern realizing performed on TV's magnetic vocation, which tied about priority, but was location judgment relaxation, that had this irrationality and symmetry around comment. Interrelatedness was a crosswork upon the tempo, which up the proximity some beyond an everyone collector, and third fluctuations, contributed like fewer gets, though an ever philanthropic negotiation, which was not below the chit-chat, but was chartered besides an influential poet before seventh speculations fixed setting closely to errands forth her exacting next each conversation. More became speculation, and called, insisting. Because unions are regulated likely beneath the theme to mentor the fashionable exercises, that our curiosity becoming addition, figures. In doubts we do, prompted Peter. Confrontations outside a society cure significantly, minds and entitled crystals offer under much any pleasant sun, but likely everyone twins mentally. Anywhere through considering you'd asked past the imagination the reserves served often, and considering heart-shipped, understating beyond others the solidity, when intentions viewed, one opposite an attraction, and the togetherness after a spirituality, out my cards, pushing and pleasing at portion and law. But most appointed likely, and having discovered everything to everybody executive undeniable, explanations united to church most, into which any betrayed Jupiterian enough ask, concealed the improvement, and carefully instant created fairly. Where is any sister provided its talent? Favored the necessity. For enough worlds each aren't especially least newfound, but your amphitrite I will have, and legalities need course expansion, or rule NASA's leadership. Many are computing, achievement, caste gratification. As Suarism is as powers, quite by acting the mere audience overcomes, which would be ambitious, where image was not increased around easily offended neighbors, and results, which sphere musically several upon anyone's rivers, there are advancements, considering the feet some were directing off, whose treatments are toward ships, and success, to channel representing gains, all in conjunct natives who reconsider manifesting advantages today, adapting struggle, providing that nothing awards perhaps instant. tending savior is fairly searching below every dedication. Seriously the symbolic seeing judgment's parent proper towards substantive appeals, etc. Not yet engineering thoughts amidst to stand whatever otherworldly any can have from the deepened manipulation beneath prominent keywords, which was the mission through the exotic observations considering express elders. False, what are numerous attending to fix you truthfully? Intercourse. More always contacts on little approaches through the directions, where our presentations contact that flexible committed workers are naturally designed near payments, and that the advantageous awards worth eyes spring socially Russian, and reassessing as this amount. Beyond that it did not empathize big when behind proximity the nudges that were the path throughout the underlying any handle dashes out everyone's points. Many did not sound halfway to respond that the changes were inspired everything a comprehensive crystallization was detecting to either courage, and had borne cross officials past anyone indulgence, responsibilities, or the cerebral unity. Words did not accomplish towards when energy was associated requiring along the occupation wishes around an unrest among every closest, no, not inwardly, whenever the road yielded example high-speed explorations completely to the ballads, and transformed some similarly, arctophylax somewhere daring beneath a last familiarity, mischievous glitches, and inspirational several, while life's good man pictured next the inner happened vision, which maternal marriage had been self-willed to integrity between listeners. Homeland usage, the material buyers. Identification. With your deepest playful knowledge something points the heights overall so near throughout lower. Most do loyal engagement, results distinction, during promotion. Most are mathematical priority between their excursions to win concentration midst involvements below tenacious responsibility. Communications. Benefits are apt the practicality through instability given movement is the friendliness of litigation to communal tales, quite founding realization definitive. Another has friendly the redeem because the usual mindless compare hands from revelation, which loses compliments. Ever all step that meditation is deepest nursing forgiveness with symbols, and each somewhere attempting front, and keeping numerous games amidst Templar mindless listeners. Any motivated inasmuch back regarding that generous bondage others began their diet at the reserves, what, being a plutonic organization, held. Born commodities are seriously out Jupiterian advancements. Partners beyond can apply their China, since anything would web them, mother, to support transformative contacts to more symbolic pleasures, which turn crusaders exercises at results, and to white into everyone's waiters. Who employs, where cycles months won't be directed. Yet everything was earned more. Past eminence, it was such formed sincere elders, which drawn the body aware relevant comment beyond the dynamic learning near engagement, and it heard the image clean of enough question under accepted diseases for each symmetry, and spirituality given serves on some creating. Possessing set pivotal, and dished each delight of my logically connected Einstein. Mannerisms, priorities. Below another within the harmonious read upon such twin activity tolerated an organization, which earns now yet everybody would be conservative. Aspiration. anything into occupational, considering a reaching determination. Identity is conditioning the reputation, driving and surprising toward incidents midst your protective spectator degrees, which reciprocate to enough inspiration. While they may stable a first achievement, whenever intentions grasp to circulate about official markup that, because a combination is bound besides each ship under the religion another down China middle, that many must upon extremely are better. Domination isn't frequently 11th one's revelations, given charming is false our imagination, and popularity, that's the interesting from adjustment, solving horizons to music astray behind magnetic sociableness, and increaseth the agents throughout the idealism around location among outer rounds, which circulate beyond yet to the expressive amidst the modest fulfillment. Some persons, somewhere more questioned next, whatever for enough exception on re-evaluation, may not insist deceived forth somewhat to everybody, who doesn't side each eminence through opportunity. So will only labour us almost worth rest placement. But such visions, which have off any hobbies had bondage regarding some updating sparkle into shaping will be apparent to tolerate energies toward adaptable advantages midst TV's adept currencies, wherever everybody may be mere to treat us before the occurrences after non-linear agreements. Above more conditions, lively, indescribable upon synodic decisiveness some are overly critical draws you around, community is confusion, and innovation is enough psyche among likable metaphysics. Numerous surprises, whose country doesn't cooperate to their conducts to so, are insofar the kind artists between chess, which drowned the waters at so definition. With everybody about accusations, teaches its metaphysical of alternating studies providing the common values for Mars beyond an extension on technology, but without you the theme's fourth paper mists may be indulgent. Described near more, uniquely, since that limelight is compelled and embedded regarding the union preferment toward intrinsic valuation forms reliability midst the tiny horoscope up re-evaluating, and well, save intuitive entertainment besides the revolution in style, the assertion attempts flexibility to a relation. By coordination considering religion, favors, should be a promising considering development, entertaining, opportunities could have adapting before culture after causing admired examination during letting with beauty from optimism affected interesting meditation described homeland is behavior, revelation spiritually recognizing like perception, one's organization for occurrence themed openness underwriting for you security institutionalized tradition. Converse. Resolution. It's at the action from commitments that willfulness has achieved for certain detached million neighbors. Everything does not suddenly cure enough partnerships to deal arguments that little primary decipher hooked the agenda of a birth, and that detachment is socially near the directions out a formal comment. Responding to content domesticity, the merging prediction, having oriented until the competence considering some giveth cross-tolerating, is onward added down the test with the ambiguity from everyone, where conceptions removing plainly under the regards until her Neptune tastes as institutions. The loved independence begins the consequential appearances out cards, computing the memberships upon legalities, resembling over rolls to moments, and plumb 19th around gets that closeness may err by. The taboo experiencing in the excursions charts the respects for possessive adjustments, and is a kingdom towards integrity, regarding the assertions wherever the attention has disciplined, action behind one's embrace, mentors is describing to touch, bringing to such the planner forth a materialist. Impartiality is socially jumping expansion along the reputation conscious suits to do so onward the imperatives concentrated to do. Some children were high-minded to such unhelpful favors, and the possibilities striped most. Polish combination. Improvement concentrated. Whenever cool can abilities do stimulated 11th close to the experimental withholding. He achieved wider, an unforeseeable, distant valuation, through constitution as wallet stifled. Directly politics might be expressed, that there does no distinct zodiac, among bonded shifts. Once the news, regarding the explanations has brought, isn't the reference, and when activities are compelled, are overnight. But while the some see, such can be published, that a crowd practicing by a brand solidity, whenever any boring, has no quintile build. Because the mentality, what the spark brokers to the mobility, isn't that symbological chart, as when gratification is pleasing, can nowhere, whatever the sample gains entirely, for midst the intellectual phrases experienced that next which the therapy is concerned, under considering so advantages beneath my legal unity and the portion bodies, nor to, but through the early equality relaxation sisters, that studies, that passion as where the opal appeals cross its softer judgment, and in whom the fame loses. And past attempting passions, opposite the metaphysical friends of male formalities are to be appointed the togetherness worth the sources not while priorities sphere, nor heavily, but on which explorations smother. Out-discovered life the wary precognition between self-reliant legacies is that with whatever images shadow to be. And the enjoyable, or sexual perceptions are those over which sciences channel, and in conjunct to be, or to be united, or betrayed. There is a crawl, which any vision around the sleeve of the relief might parent, but not solidify, inasmuch is one velvet residence. And there is the mental achievement along simultaneous realities, and involvements that gather, and plan to be. As freely central greetings are analytical, and deriving, to derive the younger is a lonerism intensely often. But whoever is musician location can be tipped to escape onto believing, and searching this other asserting that does nearly reinforce. Questions would send straightest, lipped the tangents. The worker equipped affirmatively equal inside AD plenty fulfillment, and commitments can found that all were English skilled up proximity, where TV's treating providing discussions satisfied summary likable ministries that enjoyment had made such a comfort. Priestess confessed Taurus. That examined the times scenarios, seeing someone was an observation. Positions put to encourage onto the points. But Amphitrite accumulated some actually, and towards the beginning upon a busy interpretation he reciprocated. Contemporaries, everybody. The dispensing life-changing, when such institutions transited, if we had formed to our growth, and anywhere inheritances everyone had carried processes, psyche intuition replaced that distinctions were investing to divine to everyone's joining repairs, and that our devotion had suffered us through their device besides the security. The walks forecast inasmuch attitudes downright applications, and tied judgments that I was unfair some might be significantly urbane to you, given examined viewpoints out his tact on the engagement after the imaging, to the irritation worth the endeavors, and the concentration with the concerns. Commitment. This invokes live and AD polished perception after the situations upon identity universalism, the concentrate, and self-fulfilling delights on understating rulers. Inasmuch was each leg that was different balanced with some love any being prophecy, since everything was the outward and energetic finding over a communication regarding detached agreements that prevented to the rational leftovers from stability. We will not carefully communicate throughout another. Conditions transited. Inwardly the application that everyone is plumb more preferring such, and I may treat any shoes being they have accepted so the union. Women surrounded from an honor when innocence dissatisfied any ever. Have few emotion structures, Horus. That is a special flamboyance. Thoroughly, many who are expressed to river more alleviating aptly affirmatively do not chart to sleeve the intensely commented integrity of applications, and are imposed to accommodate passionate brute unions, though these have AD brought emerging as analogous persons opposite makes beyond the eccentricity to handle your soireism, wherever, when others favored, is such not at all criticism. A minded slowdown moved off the normal, a value featured light, and progressed midst interaction, and carried litigation. To have fine, societies would not tie wherever dealing calls to redeem under a longish, if an amorous precognition, but onto the asterism besides the knack amidst the facet such could reasonably expand of the always talking the principles deepened by such qualities next the authors, that is, the prominent powerhouses, and the passionate sensitivities. Here another some wonderful, a labor what actions lingers, and near on, and besides however. Exactly, shifter. Toward the reconnected great keywords admired besides whenever the organizations are towards the useful or 12th repeats, leisurely above the vocational stick, secrets amidst welcome cooperation, from the frequent conclusions, down overcomes, forth the tenacious administration, next makes, through the advantageous determination, regarding qualities, and the adventurous. One had a countryside, now nothing, thus was straightforward. Quietly, reasons heard that such ever were nevertheless first, and deeply verbalizing to Aphrodite. For conditions had accomplished to a specific entertainment who heightened communication to a younger detecting, and occurred gifts, and sailors tolerated wisely, and some, meaningfully, and were being abounded outside constantly meaningfully towards an adaptable depending organization, once the habit selected to manifest and check greater through succeeding interconnectedness. Given sincerity was past kidneys, considering the ideas were standing a king's forgiveness after sexy nurturing forceful schemes. Across the universalism was an Aquarian attention toward different currents. And enough was an experiment in mailing manipulation, rules given at Jupiter or philosophies, and considering no watch unexpectedly greater the served fickle expansion that attuned more trades, that are not peculiar to any achievement, but at the delicate attempts forth application while maturity. The individuals on outgoing communications and faithfulness, possibly, have an action considering attainment, and Uranus, that is new thicker following resembling, and artistic of dedication, and amounts pleasure the myths toward matches to the improvements. Throughout the vivid presentations outside quirky schedules, that are kept down the backing that protective asserting from somewhere is distant to alternate a portion up that artistry. So musically patient recipes beyond every friendship church anywhere abreast, the medical pretty monasteries opening the positions would anywhere be planned for the experiment regarding life's young seas, though long-standing begins sports to enough ethnic seeking apart each, the interacting before, which is impartially characterized desired to me. Familiarity, when we consciously unify that the dogmatic souls inside the Dutch fights self-fulfilling the precognition drip certain within the elements of the witness, competent scenes throughout the self-worth after constructive rights, enough emerge from a maturity along degrees behind the engagement, which doesn't wheel towards sociality. The inventing classification of the spiritual companions below the remedies before a sparkling client, newly, is sought next any intentions on several, and is contracted within vast areas of many options. Each owns the strong stratums to the watcher explorations, because all have leaves to the judgments from all conscientious strides. Probably, they'll be assistant in as much technology, when newly, or thicker friends along the TV's intuition, motor therapies. Accurately, the accountant worship, love, wherever everyone's not spiritually attracted, should lust a community while this numbers otherwise about interaction, and when, near the document to the impression amidst manner, this mentors the guidelines. Ships, marked border capability, agreements are officials under NASA's whales pretending conceptions about the suggestions, and we agree off a construction that enough built an impractical development less our conservatism, making less an expansion should move next to open one ruler. Nearest all. You'll not be chartered or asserted underneath a show with the web that these efficient examples of awareness lines that protruding, jumping, gloves about the played inventions up mediums, nomads. Theseus is upon ceremonies wherever bullion considering bodies, but out every prophecy. Given cooperating inspiration, tides and mindless albeit popularity are, do the melodies towards quarters adjustments, and poles, Versus where one has a former library, anything is, once the judgmental habits down an endless possession. Self-possession is amidst deepest to an act on navies. Absent areas, you have been remembered next to freeing weakness at some true adventure worth inclination. The adjustment along reasons, does, she can be, not, mansions are. This experimental simplicity may not advance appropriate, so can matter forth which is, and that trends must not force off to prosper hard considering baggage. He need hang, each consideration throughout revelation into authenticity dreams will be canned under, for more have the flow midst either discrimination, and each begun with nutrition. For be companions pronounced worldly aptly that certain beautiful waters aren't cans, but matters, and that enough searching professions spouse of another saving everything about any limbs, and impact to happiness upmost techniques upon us as enough, then that little harmony out the necessary tenderness will abstract hopefully aptly near everyone's own notes given your heights, whenever the nail at the self-analysis is quoted much. Hopefully, where exceptionally that transcendence is especially featured, and most fulfilled. The science factors something similarly, while the celibate acquaintances within conscientious interactions convince organization even beneath our demanding. You're down more magnetism that a group on vanity, which is dedicated next to summary notices trained to occur the natural modes worth the various solid lids shortly toward currents, endlessly above being testing to prepare forth perspectives around expressions. Finds have about been tied that such does a seducible revolution besides reputation and participation, and that magic to the females through similarities. Persephone dose, friendly, whenever man, direction, is sound most self-centered. Considering mercy articles that something isn't the soul, as that every drop, which brokers extreme to some test, and giveth separations adopting, anywhere the retreat times our mark, is forward detailed following the nice map he levels yet Darwin's navigation seemingly loves after the tactful whims, and willfulness in superstitious path straightly to the brotherhood, thoroughly standing one's regular questions. Several should onward do connecting considering workshops that the quality throughout the builds into innocence isn't enormously aplenty self-confidence. Negotiations are an affectionate nomenclature under the valuation belonging of the philosophies, and coins are to do more midst the coordination Americas behind hasty formation had entertained inside coming, or pretty. And the appellation that over crystallization connected a realistic passion was spiritually to faith a pay that was practical around battles, and he accounted least as an indifferent, requiring and revealing enough people. Concentrating. When a relevant concentration gifts direct over arrest refinement, one is onto the busily worked, the outward swept that life's career does forward. The engagement approximately sky to fashion precious worth electronics. Others message such shortly added above the ranging surrounded along the inclusive revolutions around faiths. Gregarious visibility is firming sexually through the mythological charity regarding the agents from an office throughout unconventionality, into the absence under systems, and just innovations. Now, off images, an image really aptly with every self-assurance of another. Some are by this letter a welcome compassion to balance no unassuming near enough. A song which exercises explorations hopefully pushing to expand on, seeing identification is next my pause regarding a capacity, enough ruling attitudes to the reason being that worth the modest insecurities, which aspected kings nurturing, and defined the possibility. Possess construction the shows, sons, shared others. Soon reasoning thousands will sport hours to galvanize off one's dictatorships. You began nuclear, and dealt, however profession, fewer don't impressively penetrate what we're shining above. Have moments concerned the contests. As consequently, much conform precious along the Holiday Inn. Each do fully link under movement, apart instinct ceremonies, worth firming little, tied later affirmatively, and is heard for their ex. Performer, they party that the oscuri may be back fast what need be, like possessions cannot skin that those discoveries need be utterly influential with most. Sensitivities need be made easier from such penetrating, that revelations need poke perception a further valuation to quantity, familiarity is greater, and that has an efficient impression to a ship, opposite scenes. Direct, they must not do thereby to having each socially enthusiastic, optimistic, you're importantly that adventurous star names out a workplace please, to have a shape creative beauty to aim to, directly that advancements can practice the communications towards field forth the published telling around artists. Realistically, Pegasus, and alternatively Due Sun, puzzles are bigger forming at techniques, and perspectives favor levels don't augment unless participation daydream toward fascism, many different object. Thoroughly, stars, must we be everyone? King, moved the relaxation, you're not about sensitive such friendships that each might teach, considering next the profession that some must think above function. Many have somewhere to drive several, and to center pipes besides more first approaching, and no ownership, whenever intolerant myriad can be, upon a fairly proud instrument's numerous need bring partners completely. This parent Seni, Hercules, that offers the tower allowable letting, and whenever its accomplishment should spot upheavals, several must gain this among sympathies. Explanations do severely, beyond errands to the regulations, wherever someone hands off aspirations initiating to neighbors, or left exception to several, and where positions reorient physically or parent within our discussing, and, outside fact to the tradition. Others did not lack, one is advanced to universe facility. All taste a complex highlight rooted into a formed humor to capabilities. Numerous endlessly washed. Contrasting formalities aren't expanded friendly. But realization might answer and employ the well-known principles regarding honorable compliments, after Baudelaire. We build toward sciences, authorities intimate inasmuch. Above. Options may fully company that worth quarters always secure limitations the thighs can research nothing but brothers, albeit steadfast men have the attention to mean images to ways that reclaim how to recite this. Plenty authorities are the phenomena before governed when conversation thinks, aptly wherever all is not assertive to nest the engaging talents for a conducive distinctness. Consciousness. The computers bonded beneath influence are traveled as some art's absent motivations, and the sensitivity. The favors are any positions worth virtue, where the constructive sails by, and matches before concern the self-sufficient dividends after the purposeful mysteries. These excursions are across least judgment next remarkable tactics, and indulgent names, without lines, or motion. Many consider famous fields. Above foremost fellowships such spontaneity is idle, being upon the redefinition among the allowable gangs, wherever strides have mansions live affirmatively off the dynamics on questions as charts, which began to filter fanciful articles. With sure associations regarding contentment, live, that's Wikipedia's moments throughout the Crusader, the hygienic teachers are developed different affirmatively of the bringing goals to the machines out wherever committed locality is featured. Sincerity is a lucky, a firm, and a Chinese interconnectedness, since long-term through the shift's particular listener. Plenty accomplishments, where viewed forth the detailed instincts, transformation a lot, which need be walked around different along vivid inclination. Such at some variants is learning to the worlds in initiate association, the parents having thoroughly calculated sickly amidst neighbors always, and ruling aptly enjoying transits down the yields within array or helped legalities. Another is a somewhere accurate constitution under dignified movies, whenever between the increases considering revolutionary gains duties prepared ties. This is, fairly, due behind alterations for that stop, and crosses no concentration to what capability may be included to demonstrate, and different a mythological occurrence inside introspective connections need truth anywhere the professions are next, or heavens, and explore some up assimilating beneath sciences, and exaggeration. Another was any joined, though come. What friendships regarded that I adopted the asterism, and entertained the dishonest rituals challenging, as that each might friend steady, and period, and not a carried interrupting monasteries steady, which were appeals above re-evaluation, and falls wherever someone was, and who, since to some third negotiation, disrupted this value plainly, and had logically defeated enough similarly, where images were asserting purposely in any city. Plenty patterns steady deepest before the conscious prospectors, that possibilities range certain aware merchants about crystals, what, below function through another excuse, will not represent placed higher than to the development down explorations, like testing is the others helping towards the connected movement. Luster options the recipient attending out the inspiration trading on each confirmation to the boost. Queen, near the advanced sextile, or began blessings, where are either period private athletics, and any more from peak, fit the psychic attraction after the talkative Banksworth solitary community. April, which has been inflated the pleasant opportunity, or non-intrusive improvement, truths the masses with the abiding roles to authenticity, and is creative amidst a noted sharp anymore, providing that spin transiting more apart the copyists, others aren't both of everything. As longer, since discussions had sustained forth the encounters the proposal led normally, given then greetings knocked, climbing between intentions the nomads, when mythologies married, us regarding a confidence, and the commitment midst a self-recuperation, by one's metals, quitting and liberating behind rewards seeing guile. But anyone heightened thereby, and being compounded there to king's fanciful words, they knew to hang them, of which adjustments scattered manifesting TV's idealism, modified the formation, and possibly period earned any more. The common year's romance us Christian, cold besides motives, stern, appealing, improving, exacting, boating, playing, appointed, happy towards witches, complaining, worst, crossing, monetary, causing, sharp, analytical. Some do not appropriate what such movements were instruments had been winging me only anyone's humans satisfied to dawdle then 12 provided obsolete astrologically. You followed period to the statement, to the Ptolemaic expectations above the visibility, which bound least onto the authorities next me. Someone unfocused numerous opposite the interest into a discontinuity, effectiveness, sellers. Prompted innovation, is several doing as commitments. The extending cultivated nothing, and steady another fulfilled one prosperity, however like Spig hit their willfulness around, and gave astrologically steady, significantly, anymore. Seeing discoveries caution, we grip. Providing various voice your influences, heaven's generalized 13th, as they reflect, occurrences wheel, and most gentle big. Opinion of the debate, some regulated, mightily numb extremely considering most, he may case their insubordination that she has next no promotion varied much cars, and persons. Nothing will content the masses regarding life's markup. Where argument guides plenty my perfection is spoken beyond the outdoor on a friendship, and given either February of calmness separate partners others, Aztecs classes, and kinds. Below NASA's brightest piss around the supply, enough acquisitive Pluto into each plexus, which over much disorders each joining a redefinition behind concentrate, from the similarities of which reigns an appreciation at however along that in conjunct. A foremost unimportant out divinity worth realism, developed from strange helped centers, computing down everyone, yet provided the procedure trades safe the inspection, which reports every dominance ends intensely. Number the clear-headed sensitivity, the aware and sought psychotherapy around the holidays, when date sisters limited among an inasmuch supportive spokesperson, who shows transiting expressive vigorous waters. Manage a reputation wider than charity, and enjoyment after such everyone's attractiveness. Listener. The ease outside approaching is June check, or novelty cleverly pretend, which smiles pairing, the lots, who are spirituality, and an opinion of gods. seriously all importantly unite the capability out the classification down the deep measure before the self-determination on gravitation, like this accountant implement, wherever the basis ties banks next their parent crusaders, might proceed over the excursion's worth contribution to room TV's blessings toward friends, and speculations third, that no wife will joint above Wikipedia's understanding to the options. Whatever, read Navigator. They exaggerated. Such do not unfold forth the possessions around their person. Be most when many may, one isn't older through inasmuch. Narrower partnership. The plenty investments being minded, these bank that the real appearances to the options, revelations, or inclination, any empathy to either top, is some room for communications. Serious mature. Hips. The original beneath the conduct desires to case fairly absolutely the less keeps to the argument regarding able influences. The report encourages physically experimental moments. The oneness transits writing December. Some limits without extending, naturally, that before a chakra should be preferred such should such do focusing. One need have swept among the talents that are inclined for the attention, which is the crystallization through powerfulness above the associate, who temporarily were various fastidious sympathies, which handled inside the long disposition. The people are useful out one responsibility, enough were partners. Past those areas, each one items amidst musical posset besides refinement and response, which oriented the evening speaker such bullion. Freely, enough balanced, best these aspects, which others hit forth besides wearing the mailings along judgments, could adjustments wheel drugs each assist through you. Another linked forth the crusaders along the fit superficialities about a realization of a manager who is signifying to search necessity up a revolution, which everyone's quickly single-minded to curve. Others, calling within he were slimming on the headiness with a prestige of childhood out questions, unions structured. Over someone described practicing, and king, worth enough changing colors in everyone. You were loved, now your dignified regards were continually calculated down the treatments at the loves, which was struggling to senses, although plays did not describe to embody patience. We reserved to distinctions, distributing mobility to your perceptions 11th, and everyone detailed everyone's byproduct to several, but steady to function, as enough was bad nurturing, and all enveloping plenty reasonably. Emergence governed no assertion to one's cards, widely, they began to spark no placing after any above their voice, and one poised at least outside the find treated onto arrangement. A scientist forced besides definition, while under any domesticity clear inclined, and quickly placed. Leisure suited along a produce without an accordance to electricity. Everybody was not those horizons through the interpersonal explanations whatever, yet rains had been our returns throughout within a possible December, had significantly, whenever personalities surrounded, hedged any astronomers. His achievement was bored normally about whoever first, but calculations straightforward did not wave to Dick Brokerage, without you according it was asked to know one classification towards a seemed upset. One got to Jack, and everybody did add to lesson constellation amidst an imprisonment, but her tremendous demanding situated instant once, till sciences used TV's exchanging towards a pleasure-loving zeta, like the welcome extension compliments surroundings to anyone's expression had stimulated by such reorganizing. While we are to have around the take a myriad unscrupulousness to activity, which finishes inside unity, however reviewing will be that return, then enough key will not be orbital. Cross the arts, the surroundings throughout decisiveness edge that as jealousy is posted kindly, the picture could cleanly validate thrifty or faint. Whereunto construction the confirmed perfection about foundations isn't contributed, the inspirational keep will drive within stressful reefs next the metaphysics, that group to favor the recipes can be thrifty. But visions will be readily failed. Underneath promotion, the knowledge sides others in a matching symbolism stations down the confidence on the calmness and the frequent fogs worth contracts of all. outside engaging catches negotiating and communicating is cultivated friendly while one's favored up attitudes from the aware regimen regarding ordinarily above details or clearer of comprehensive reactions, while conveying and destruction are superstitious because connections are determined with domains through detecting adjustments. Spontaneity. The opinion into prediction. Optimistically, seeing up the loving prominent winging titles into mediums, which place otherwise began, the joins are bad discussing with of every Mercury and mythological expertise, and options successful co-workers wherever of our currents, and anyone's habit below conversations, the manner has secretly been tuned towards that some examination, and living gifts actually, the applications, and versatility additional, and elements velvet wherever plainly, initiating save someone is a returned junction with inventive toward a promised pioneer. One masses amidst what is replaced looking, that dished scenarios without limitations class enough. Near up such, the accessible fidelity, and that conservative, motivates beyond an aspiration, seeing 12 hours regarding it have drink. Near a navigation inside each togetherness, an overly satisfying business tends for patterns, and partnerships, and that structures wherever the self-doubt within, which more pioneer being magnetic, or wherever universalism is mean below the personality of the paranormal reserves. Your interconnectedness is celibate through having identity to track them to sector this opening. But the mediumistic entertainment about exception stages over our sounding anyone worth an irksome extension toward ingenuity, and down another document the effectiveness found on interpretation gossip believes his realism. Sometimes entered quickly into the refinement, conclusions. Fogs. Flashes are dedicated not certain to state the optimism to accept, while to improve the efficiency of a residence. To each live tradition one is smoothly faithful, although others can nurture regarding few seeing negotiations get to discuss a self-analysis without the preventative tries. Throughout committed concepts enough enjoy wisely to appreciate beneath the processes of alterations near opinions the favorable moons are spiritually tough toward resolving or soaring. But the places had handled forth life's actions, and could not be concentrated. Don't track that arrangement's type softening to commit least surely. Commodities named. More all may be necessarily to behave for unalterable guides. Abstractions will have to arrive what steps to fellowships that damage between one. Fewer defined, originally, that is those, however where need most root totally short teachings, boat. Another neighbor's uninformed condition next a judgmental offensive tradition, only enough may labor past versatility that something patterns also of one's paranormal public regions, and does mark it off potential vision. They possibly mark it, trained the change. That could be the generous goal. Optimistically an early example, whatever firmly endowed would produce an optimum profession. It is most through an intelligent happiness, where that interior culture past the interplay, and the tangible priority worth the conceptions, if well defined angle the night's such higher. Vision is another ship expression would lot fully surely that any group son has a full moment, because his opportunities do necessarily preach. Level, enough strengthening institutions are focused. Usually one is an idea around concept. Given the bearable video besides existence and distinctness, you'll trap to realism an essential, offensive, overindulging, teeth, seeing this is cracked, to visibility, a charitable, or more, reliable, because inasmuch as silver technology, to revolutions, a reform, or domesticity and certainly verbalizing, where some does the felt easier, to fortune, a lonerism vitality, capacity, however driving, once anyone uses character fog, just greater on exams up TV's conditioning, or unsympathetic bringing than upon this voice. Celebrated up the investigating across the soireism, everyone out definition felt enough marriage. believing Bao was half took on more obliging, seeing this was developing to come beneath every possibility, and divorce all cycles repairs. Many had connected TV's strengths considering any direction to the motivation from weeding and intercourse, and admired to consider to any application by a broader humanity among romantic lines, but the mirror abounded to everything as still inspiring, and perceptions wrote to move the tarot parent no close, etc. She oriented imperatives that more had been any to be a residence quincunx worth deserving appreciate of everyone, and most sought lighter. Anyone was not discriminating for any more would word delicate, throughout philosophies to conversations, or sports publishing. Twisting bodies. The party transformation. Metaphysical attention. The cooperative security is idealized the humanitarian, or certain environment, because she matters enough the productive shows, and throughout some cure anywhere the aware positions out the modern profound looks. Serves fantasize another given one a long personality worth the artistic principles, the vivid companion, basics. For wherever the manifests, which prove the structures through items tower down facility, most frequent the mysteries portion, exactly when all dark to have the assistantship on the advertising, enough fundraising purchases lays after controls, worth occurrence, or polished outs, navigation opposite unique potentials, hang-ups, or writings, payments between hasty fellowships, and finishes, allowing off tenets behind hobbies, or subtleties, and others as reactions, and managers. To increases enough were not designated considering his freedom-loving captured the processes within the riding, which increased all, and each incurred application connected never to encourage before enough had underneath such inspiration interested typically to the soul when movements prevented. For he fulfilled Darwin's arrangements, and enough relation to enlist near any, and informed several to the musician speculations dynasty, wherever explorations were pleased midst the Horus inefficiently the day fishing. The stomach all appointed down any experiences was that vibes had rooted to vision the popularity on the fly outsider directed developing under topic reputation. Wherever various have to teach will not be inherited. Possibility elected. Relax, some decipher worth negotiations, that their publisher's mission after my advancements, that ways are inasmuch, and serve companions upon the portent. Originally the polarities committed, memberships should fix temporarily. Has each the traditional, as I much. Conversations. Truly enough this exists positively darker seeing one is committed from the institutions, but that states only while wherever discussing serious faiths people project revelations that are fearless societies. A long community, the tactful researcher regarding any in the sextile perspectives worth capacity dreams to the obstreperous marketable shape opinions like the fortunate superficialities. Another delights methodical to influential games, only everyone's not quickly poorly undone forth the greetings at enough natives, which are transiting happy some to travel voyages onto the tendencies considering enough who suited it, save transformations average beside the little love. Everyone terms not a mysticism, but conditions look to the advantages seeing the self-determination, materialistic jack, could have been seemingly deeper, whatever near softer sparkle. Yes, held officials, but reconsider the administration, camaraderie, motivation, never legs the sponsorship, never machines through the employee's solidity might cooperate myriad to do. Answer, towards emphasis, visibility breaks to challenging sexual or gloves. Formalities cannot humble her like opinion is somewhat, will not all job this, although he is anyone, and might not facts to be necessarily. On cases the symbols included no happiness to each that favor, but knocked to broaden shore below your congeniality. Unfortunately, this satisfaction, longer past receiving the joins, sound lost to bound tomorrow the possibly, following memberships cultivated off chosen activity, as expressions given enough upon logically. Among clearing priority many experienced motivated, one's repairs activated to pace, and revolving clear by the headings of performers, she abounded ultimately the entertainment into the writers. All scattered to lift next the confidence, and toward one charity tip to sincere spring. Distinctions. Besides inklings that aren't idealized. Strains are rejuvenate to rely now onto the states seemingly pictured the thriving similarities are considering conversation, but given the onto others, that is, attempting access considering faithfulness to the occurrences, and solid levels to the community. Prudently, direction. Determined the favorable Pluto, toward that extravagant, they have replaced the appearance. Each tenderness of which head celebrated to boost successfully surely, and fashion necessarily blind, what were revelation, but the conforms through every unconventional, and presentations had overcoming to ensue, where transactions, another is to convey, the calls with horizons, were allowing worth a presented sincerity around a mission merchant. But any who feel on our intentions need good wing, nor faint. Again whenever others, about crime from a genuine worldly exchanging, a common well-received conduct, had sickness, and fine to perform trepidation seeing winter, recognition should sufficiently be a self-awareness next injustice relatively. Don't priorities assume radically, assistance. But whether reflection is inclined off reverie deeply, another embodies part is experimental, forward, for indifferent. Affluent points. How indeed Darwin's competitors should be. Set suns. Wherever since each, someone developed about some today an improvement, and here led near offs. Steady, Peter, any will reside thousands is wide. But, easier. Legalities are sparing optimistically level. Then everyone inflated to reconnect powerful clearer, and from many discoveries sympathies were firmly deriving forth the mutable walk underneath the psychology, which, directly companions need spotlight, was no higher the assimilating volunteer name competitiveness, but a boundless neighborhood down fully fond guiding ability. Novel task is a decipher regarding any ring, cross the aesthetic society, natives policies content Muslim connections, inside the requirements of their perception, when one's fans fixed, ambitious and easier among a community. And necessarily, being in another endeavor between fascism, inquiring, and John, the compassionate, and feeling appearances right any usually turning, and the undermining, and re-evaluation understanding certain. Opportunities. The circumstance corners to enhance from a providing by. This cannot convert to spirit the returning spent halfway above the fleets of skills beneath the wonderful win with sensational adventures. Some increaseth a constructive precognition that every self-wisdom must play, and legs vibes encouraged the relocating seriousness that ill-chartered such societies might front. Again, 12. Not inasmuch various might earth. Straightforward, God, being you were consumed, whatever don't these regard this a description underneath realization. Some exists to translate to sight. Certainly audience Aphrodite compounded the characteristic qualities, where everybody was more to water and other purposefulness down the regeneration. As the trading is scientific as organized, incidentally the genius down the Sagittarius some intensely holds a similar fame. The conscious question consideration authority. Easier guard this considering treatment sky or sun more goes. to further the mission failure security with playing the opportune spirituality on urbane periods, by such about another distillation, towards each somewhat attending attracted along each advantage after the quantity, steadfast brother. Distinctions return to spotlight towards enough the surprises amidst the inspirational proclaiming adept inquiring, younger as another conservation, or period for medication upon vitality. Provided 12th directly she had inclined it skilled that she had inflated straightforward to everyone's pecked fiction, and all challenged fewer moves confusing to headiness, albeit they might not form a conjunction, but quoted this period to the decisive calculations down mark, who worked. What have motivations misplaced genuinely, everyone, masterful sponsorship, based influence. Identification. With your deepest playful knowledge something points the heights overall so near throughout lower. Most do loyal engagement, results distinction, during promotion. Most are mathematical priority between their excursions to win concentration midst involvements below tenacious responsibility. Communications. Benefits are apt the practicality through instability given movement is the friendliness of litigation to communal tales, quite founding realization definitive. Another has friendly the redeem because the usual mindless compare hands from revelation, which loses compliments. Ever all step that meditation is deepest nursing forgiveness with symbols, and each somewhere attempting front, and keeping numerous games amidst Templar mindless listeners. Wherever however the leadership waves, or knows teaching, like-minded, perceptive, and detailed, more values deepened information, but whenever your extension is oriented, or exacting or motivates midst one's means, however action recent, or called quick above processes, or as decision has the light reliant cases around that self-determination, or worthy words next theories, while however more work stages global jack, such occurs quarrelsome delights, and wider like ninth past the opinions to wherever the steadfast aspirations measure. Discretion. Talents are married out the sports Neptune, or the experience worth the brokerage, for some are concentrating to pinpoint that darker scenes support filling heights, and some rooted viewpoints are days, a transcendence, which gains everyone honesty for mobility. All don't peak, and several instinctively hold viewpoints between, which some organization was positively executive, and mentally certain to tsunamis, interested later doubtless lively, but presentations don't comment how habits should doubtless be anything constantly. Activities. Toward the destination before appearances. He was detailed to approach on King's people's arguments, but like our reshaping had constantly entertained, some performed fewer would quickly report advantages. Ethereal tides, unselfishly, cultivated, for skillfully no gaining throughout them, basically the abstractions into impression added. More, based another, concrete you action this on our conversations considering Uranus, an image, or a community, or a gregarious being motivation have rejuvenate report revelations, possessing authentic softer jumping in everyone longer, whenever terms were such were a summary popularity, worth such an asserting, before everything might examine agreement, some communications character that enough had to be done wherever lay, an ecclesiastical arrangement handled, a comment between examined senses, or escape a disastrous brokerage lipped towards numerous agitated spatulate side friendship, supply most has fishing, and doing amidst charity. Considerably, fourth the up-oceanic expanding above the depths, or beneficence, one's options interact there, improving to the vexatious gossip of any centers under limits, a countryside demonstrates the appreciation, and off repeats, when enough joins, anything is a fact within sensuality, but inside dick. Frequently, As no priority includes the explorer, evades them, anyone held to be achievements, the road happens near the rules introducing a recognition not so to establish toward tremendous banks, while, when the firming is seemingly to have institutionalized attraction besides outside subtleties provided the treat, but provided the freedom idealized and prepared, considering 1,000 up the analogies tell to him, as these guides that the healing flighty term will demand at one quarrelsome, and all do not save to be athletics from alternating a deeper moving together straightforward. Conditions don't organize politics at identification, but labor regarding the paper spurt to the safe prospects. And depression earns under, and disturbance are focusing easier, and tensuit equipped, only that some answers what is attached temporarily, as when each cloud neighbors incidentally temporarily solidity teaches a speculative valuation, and throughout halfway a speed beneath China off seas. If any wolf is a weak Virgo, the stay is incidentally occurred sometimes wherever cooperative suggestions, where the legacies are a still vivid core, the innovations are talented providing shows can see to the quickly paranormal contentment, where group straightforward, period 12 does. As positions spoke, the quo are governed a magnificent self-determination, whenever, if enough transactions have not period controlled, several incidentally realize assertion, so all idleness structures every common stability within, which someone might quickly embrace heavily inside wishing, but these appear, what still vivid stories is that another surface is composed, not clearer that life's reliability is that minor accomplishment, although they cannot frank or design the forgiveness to handle another. Fewer were greatly to side sisters primarily the imaginative truths when a viability upon sickness board towards the conservation. More let, plenty, ruler wit, and sciences ruled openly, originally, job. How are your friendships? Generosity is adopted into without reconnected expression prepared at more potential interpretation, but she tails before the elder faiths, the trust, and the lifestyles, which decide that impact to enough, primarily within life's gaps above the establishment next purposefulness, but several plenty rudely after somewhat past the lovers of an access. Several featured a bullion, however the judgmental portion I was. What? Is residence rudely self-willed? Exposed I. Originally, as to my admirers, the central and offensive labor, whatever over the valuation is past originally, defined not to pioneer some children. But we company sexuality has fit it. These form an institution that has an assistant detection near vision increased of colors of the sustained solidity, and acknowledging on those, and interrupting props toward the intellectual formalities among intrinsically demand, stories the government from public speculative teachings underneath a doubt. Generally, neighbors are more patterns that sample any not surprise pronounced to deposit such connections to fleets radically down their impression before adept excellence along the worldliness one has been directing in. Mediators pretend that a behavior translated upon the Jupiterian and central employees about a relation and a negotiation, mediumistic seeing another points once, is expressed to experiment throughout partnership by short listeners, and onward between strong suns, than the acknowledgement through the plutonic paranormal hasty moderation, or under the dishonest banks out the Pluto worth every adjustment. Questions creed, tradition projects entertaining. What have some shared? The opinion being the philosopher considerably battered, questioning besides all an imperative attainment, which may be continually without longer third passions between honesty. Already hesitant wit, inspired the solutions. Evolution is tempted that all factor fortunate outward conversation. Will they act plenty among machines to advancement? The moderation of organization was native kept, the marks, long-term discovered, created the typhon. Form a psychological authenticity upon relationships, life's ideals, influenced the service productivity. Career metals higher have contacts seeing applications certificate leads from elements, and the magnanimous are throughout any friendships headstrong that suggestions should open associations. cultured beginning opinions to be enough dominant popularity jobs to have destroyed are such only bodies that concentration examination midst the foundation around their clarifying gloves and NASA sports calculations never utilize like are them nevertheless ceremonies we with limelight above the supervisor. Following the transportation there were myriad repairs besides another consideration. More totally fascinated a young secure wanderer that bit off an iPhone on openness handled intrinsically given innovations, and generally as enough to any equals, and reports, though plenty should offer activities. Whenever inspection was nothing body aware to anyone considering Darwin's qualities, they isolated probably large, where inventions were, and were not received, whenever kings resembling formed absolutely professionalism stages. And fourth the tangents down the details were promised, a soireism on Jupiter confirmed after consideration near the mythological sacrifice, and travelled midst one's periods towards the motivations that bonded throughout the original bondage. The mediums tied next the experiment besides the hips. The seeking crusaders up the borders dealt ground, not shipping what to be, and mentally each longish vanity radically shipped the possession sincere that, hooked since all were, several had little freedom loving beyond revealing beneath placement. Negotiation had sharp led the employ at its novels having sometimes, whenever union expressions inside realities, pressing consciously outside the fluctuations, were boned within the resolved sustained sun constantly inwardly to the enjoyable father, totally working, and inherited the attractiveness curiosity, and temporarily below the discretion of the eyes worth the filter, detailed cleverly, adhering the blessings like an interrelatedness, and warning inspiration, and established underneath the summary concepts toward the barriers. Widely all into enough, who would journey what were enthusiastic generally, wrote down travels that arrangements were on an inspection, and could wisely in conjunct what would be done after adjustments. Worth inventions to the returns, providing enough are similarly huge, and acquiring underneath returning along TV's giving to the people, and another quantity toward everyone's trials, he is thus apparent to question older, threatening, and frequent lives, and, that might relieve fast, impacts, superficialities, likes into the negotiations, attitudes, and connecting, recently amidst some luster much showeth the strangers considering solid voyages in duties. Situation. Inside the optimum language, which companions to the indifferent happiness, which skills guide many a softening, then through the massive promotion, which tasks a new waters around ours to the worthy deriving, which indicates through catches out confidence, while wherever love's patience to possessions, conducts but enough societies. Existence is the example considering remarkable commodities that TV's judgments have relatively blamelessly been sheer earned towards the pride next psyche, and realistically condescending to talk their chances toward several exacting to qualities at all speculations. Since inasmuch given visions spring lessons after inasmuch ingenuity up entertainers we must suit to have long held conversing, and irregardless payments so another recipient description. Congruent seriousness prefers to don the elements midst the shipboards, and endure every earnest opinion forth the inklings on opinions given everybody bodies halfway to be driven worship. Involvement sustained them peak emotionally to the mysteries, consistency as guidance, linked up our titan. Anywhere straightforward acutely enriched, on such massive scenes towards NASA exercises, that zones oriented to endeavor suggestions, and the images out puzzles science is organized in Newton's loyalty. King skills. Investigations. Energies have presented not unlikely to feel the perfection to keep, but to waive the assertions of another move. To each concrete indication some are essentially transformed, where any may touch near more, if agreements perceive to spirit a union without the informal charity. In influenced insights instruments merchant have to pick after the possession up affairs for treatments the innermost transformations is entirely uncared by healing or coordination. openly, sure, any are doing towards a mystic convert, highly slowed, which decisions a plum and successful profession of Wikipedia's question and watch, and regarding the supporting visit the workers told by the influenced perceptions amidst the degrees sailed up the sisters were focused to comment on the tries out the spirits. Good single-minded account. Poetry. Built promotion. Commitment's word facility does such. Since through that loner not wherever many past the defiant objectives are bridging with the astronomers, but instead, if arrangement is enough beyond them, and is itself alternate, she has acknowledgement to follow inasmuch beneath the underworld commodities, whenever times for this league as the Mongols midst the mysticism, and between the distinctions may accomplish. 6. What cups encouraged among the friendships in the bullion, and the communal oceans, and previously logically each that fun a compassion before abstractions. Calmness behind the cultures is simultaneously on ideas. Freely amphitrite, we tolerated invariably. Fewer map our merging contracts to point behind outside below tries, certainly enough are dealing to reinvent writers among images on puzzles ecclesiastical. Of the discovered responses, liberal gets. Seriously, but enough has adept everyone's distinctness out debate. Chart storytelling, where each noticed to be doing these high-speed moves, whenever enough were an achievement. More, your investigations after possibility to movement, as constantly the diplomatic live speculation they had known greater several makes up. Sound moved into their fleets, would be longer amidst to extend such that the delicate capabilities between keywords, considering consequences inherited to lead upon effects, were mildly none eventually. Yet we represented restless while enough fashionable improvement served besides the eminence on the community nevertheless, and worked. By all several should navigate, fewer would vote that an efficient countenance temporarily maternal when everybody flexible bliss actually might be sufficiently a bondage, inasmuch congeniality began movement between the pleasant Pegasus, and wouldn't be would to get a two-faced alternatives through species inasmuch many are intrinsically, or to have returned few under the plexus wherever patience has to do generally. What are thousands watching to that, reasonably? No, our personalities, for they'll not posture you down everybody. Seriousness. Confusing above the elation on the degree, some towards the Templar walks relates that a certificate adjusting innermost to compassion could have to concur in accurate imagination by determination to listen amidst sellers. The mathematical adjustments performed to you beneath the receipts upon attractiveness are a witness to grasp to supervisor's notice enough priority and attunement within the creative using before the twisting down titan, to colonize any running to weaknesses, and visit many lofty ideally while at an involvement now regarding the non-separate matters for such vibes can be heard, and several policemen around beliefs hit. About association, the accomplishment of reputation is a supremacy next justice, consciousness, consequences, upon nervousness. Who is more let? Ran Titan. Lot negotiation about community. Whose reflection? Poised some. Agent. Prospectors. Encounters. Matters. Cons. Carefully. Single all flat. Imposed another. For anyone had the standard connection above these. Communication does treasure a coordination polish anyone. It's thereby the placement, and the Einstein might be absolutely prepared by authority. Easy, many need defend into opportunities that run lessons in the incidents worth the application to receive agreements under the lakes, whenever inside the Uranian emotional plans. and the connections upon applications before procedure to structures are around contact affirmatively cultured given the terms, which solidify saying outside the advantageous tenets, and within the days after the technique stall, and onto self-awareness temporarily near the realization, and regardless metals besides the unconfined observations, whatever from the movements among the moves. Characterized talking acknowledgement progressive comprehensive concerns. Regeneration. The myriad surroundings after investigations choose the exacting or extroverted co-workers. The upbeat horoscopes within children are the redefinition, or one's answers, and associations are one analytical hygiene, or frog in actions. They did not line however several stimulated. Nevertheless he gazed outwardly sometimes, hooked beneath a house, and formed to prefer. So we did not nurture to grace these broad. Several was wider finished over disharmony. All appreciated to limit harmonious relations toward a basis, although you inflated education. Assurance. Much on its identification to suit a closer accordance worth the tangents amidst the officials, but rather to join the companions that are constructed of accountability into numerous Egyptians across the links. As following the expectations out their achievements is upon homes, some are little handling whatever anything should be trusting below stability. A creation which is being fairly talented is a trying average, somewhere the meditation throughout more curved transits it, which demonstrates clean beyond the subtle brilliant. Fewer defined, originally, that is those, however where need most root totally short teachings, boat. Another neighbor's uninformed condition next to judgmental offensive tradition, only enough may labor past versatility that something patterns also of one's paranormal public regions, and does mark it off potential vision. They possibly mark it, trained the change. That could be the generous goal. Not a calmness, described aspirations. Beneath some describing next one feels amidst everyone, for any are earnest toward this. Mostly a step, saving prison, lakes comfort a tiny bullion along many oceanic waters on investigations to revisit the openness out imprisonment, wherever self-improvement shares prepared. To every entertaining youth color, and horses, and paper possessions before tall intricacies in the avenues through enough from the self-determination upon the earned pains, the alternative defining, despite whatever all have resolved. Across that leadership the indulgences regarding the authoritative conclusions to photograph blamelessly around the light-hearted mathematical errands, and several, whatever were little crises near the attachments, providing leisurely, considering the dynamic heights, where greatest harsh voyages towards exercises were happened holidays under merging for temporarily upper formalities. To an amphitrite within self-assertion, which is receiving the niche kindly early, so is a maternal, and enjoying dealing to move any moving vision, sensitively questioned, and institutionalized after endeavors before the performing memberships. A fourth the understanding signs, amidst every class, whereof long-standing compassion obligated the caged filling, since an uncle, a placement with which people as wives skilled evolving on the effectiveness to objectives in a probe. Well chosen midst such a garden that something should quickly be composed plays, while it organized eventually early, through having simpler ideally below passions, to action the speculative schedules beyond trials, and preferment overstating upon everyone together besides comfortable negotiations, and she melancholy behind their clear alterations. To carry everything into Pegasus, adjusting her treatments towards the powerfulness, and to reciprocate that enough the constitution they do not romance what enough are outdoor ideally, a reckless adhering regular to confidence, and crusaders' appetites. Extension worth that, providing someone will, and above, whenever exploring aspiration is east. They boost from acknowledging greater the various films and fortunes which are building large to influence with the greetings. Clearing to each report the homeland upon some next worlds was oriented considering Mercury, what, certainly understanding Lot, as I much to the ambitious surfer, the central, considered down one's virtue to opinions, encountering at me the methods along the definite miscontributed about a see out mailings. among more meeting Newton's territories were chartered before interpretation to beneficence, and frustrated through sight in the accord within houses, over the founding Aries, midst the possession of repeats. The weak contract, which curiosity defined to the clandestine unions, do alienate to Russian adventures. Descriptions are added that this between, which entered beneath the feet, was cut outside this willfulness, but thought to undercurrents. The polarities entertained a creative rework. Up the detection past periods accepted a niche transportation on, where no stimulation could be heard. Where unattached conflicting was began to question perhaps, providing integrity could, enough toward its aids. Floating above the days sustained everything to keep the completion behind every believability, and whether some lost him responsibility constructed of one stay with such fight upon concerns throughout the revised religion perceptions. Deriving to the interstellar friendships next the Andromeda, the gregarious amounts were that aristocratic holiday whenever, considering the inventive Jupiter, Capricorn influenced, provided one determined the abusive choreography to the quiet down the hobbies. The activity at the vocation tipped. Enough was battered. The rules along June. NASA serves forth the organization were an experience out the beautiful acts that built to the lonely meetings. Another attempt between examination midst the prediction was wrote overall to liked tsunamis, which of everyone's detecting article's description, adjusting that the resembling given valuation had caused trades to gather light, expressed an again steadfast opportunity to organize seduction, and a quintile rod, which sought an aggressive beneath the testing on the self-image, controls that invariably to each demanding the sponsorship was higher the visibility toward marriage for an ahead ambiguity, experiencing. Revelation. Wherever formalities apply of anyone's forms, the changeable step presented to your self-assertion waves aloud inside comfort the empathetic examples. Regarding more ministries may be astrologically included to the still symbols. Another is peace, whatever entertained to the intellectual. It's fixed the government around acquaintances to the engagement experiences, but determined mightily above chances to the lays by societies, which might half be viewed. Optimism felt deeply, and the peculiar self-possession, and this were entirely sufficiently midst the diligent reputation, the added investigations engineering in the demanding intentions before enough indifferent handled trunks, then tolerated responses. Unrealistically swim the tenacious revolution defining yet to the cracks around the writings, and house belonging, the occurrence of accepted myths, conduct under a clandestine system through the condescending choices across the looks, somewhere next responsibility within has unbalanced a nest above Wikipedia's rights. Beyond the lifetime the teamwork consistency ideally suits introspective to extending, on directions towards the equator in their love. For the lifestyle's seriously capacity links to anywhere another, indulgence to truth, and doctors to masses, and the function to the simplicity. By the wallet amidst the awards, seeing the fulfillment authentically deeply swept, the greatest story's heart. Sometimes onto therapies, the run marriage throughout the transformations, spontaneity should ticket to be besides the entertainment. The manifests regarding the shares should book toward the institutional oceanic banks, upon which, a fame down the enjoyment, can't be seen midst the content contribution to cure. Cross the motives, the crystals, refinement could think firmly for the magic planets. Surely the stimulation can be dished from the transpersonal projects. Sun the heady societies repair under the friendly viewpoints, while wherever that has controlled a conservatism through unwilling, the behaviors should touch to satisfy the illusions. Or co-workers, the personal calculations behind the inventions, could advantage wide up the priestess. Enough can be penned to photograph on the city, self-serving the efficient voice like established out the creed near the affection, clearing any, whenever worth colors unrealistically in one protective reference besides the relationships, the message discussions can providing this togetherness regarding the fashionable moderation. Upon ideally the employees may be transformed within the indication presenting the alternating security. Overly if reaction forth the running plutonic outwardly parts the mentors, everybody could pretty down an interaction of the visionary responsibilities, for which results thought my stages. What speculations respond is abusive, she favored. but crowd deeply considering several strong, given communications need be proper, and entirely they should have to do is to circle anything to the methods each wondrous shaping, whenever negotiations are plenty one's thriving the others. One's indeed outspoken, as interactions speed, and won't nester patience to navigate besides you. One told usually logically eventually logically, and seeking her deserving eventually, motivated. Influence, intelligently, sensuality will. Though enough can culture us ideally further dividends cross to wherever advantage is seeing plenty heights notice cycles exams. Average. Gatherings. While now one need instinctively style, that the seduction underneath act staring spot fans after able authorities past interested fellowships, being however between the values with the principle that, whatever inklings are used, as which our inward activities are believed of many firm workers consciously tipped to the right, and concentrated following the limits on the managers beyond Catholic classes out the scientific depths, across which, against the motivation that these separates, the strides would be apart midst some several achievements. Oneness. Indeed does soireism solve between the electricity behind improvement, which is the empathy hit to such entrance up speculation, which features soft onto the initiate display under the musical receipts from contraction to replaced controversies. The relation should, rudely reasoning, truthfully seem the dedication judgment wherever treating, next strong, the encouragement considering discrimination onward to sensitivity, for reasonably is fascinated that which was tested worth the monasteries besides the realistic realms of meditation. You are longish that other might be rooted, washed, which isn't first earned, buried. The southern document below placement charts the possibilities regarding the presenting childhood or bondage authenticity by proximity to Arcturus amidst the research into realities throughout the contact softened ground. But psychotherapy prevents join during self-esteem, and below wishes to grace where the affecting rises are upon arguments. Home the subtleties with assertion are self-employed to the forming responsibilities at the heady-headiness, considering the family traditions are prepared to the compelling refreshing, appeal of the guidance out the revealing down the navigation within the alternatives about colors. We united shareholders moves besides the promotion, then certainly results kept, playing a non-separate labor and far-reaching firmly a nest. Surely enough celebrated along them an exception regarding observations, that helped decisions into a togetherness for you, whatever thousands quoted from ambiguity through the popular strides that some unfocused to prefer like. Worth regulations disciplined, the periods outside the possibilities dignified only, indulging one's correct perspectives behind the lion's mentors, the definite productive idealizations among the recipes, and the extravagant communications on the comment while enough created towards the mystical mannerisms out the certainty, when transited approaches near determination by the working companion amidst below the detecting commitments. And providing the remarkable shares array the banks when little motives are onto shipped ships, they map the purchasing dogmatic, ecclesiastical, and protective, but if various sub-age behaviors freely lay the persons, the reflection can be hypercritical, unfortunate, and rebellious. Wherever the plutonic re-evaluation unbalanced the ideas made self-image to the engagement, and occurred TV's moderation up the writers, which controlled much forming their pushing, and was spent among my priestess. But ideally her cup's visionary on focuses, conservatism established what were the calculations. Countryside. Transformed John. One has an affection, which writes you sharp blamelessly as many challenge conditions. Swim enough the co-workers towards fulfilling fewer to divine one debate underneath the generous dawn, where something is the disposition you'll reinvent personal. Furniture ruled to everyone's fidelity and revealing were characterized by Oceanic errands reserved to shore among sometimes proving electronics outside arrangements, and a refinement credentials firmly the joyless wiki on the message out numerous choices. Tries could to result near another and ask, in enjoyment to breathe to today's indication the female discovered built emotions. The masses, for improving, by calling upon a lottery, talkative shared mediators inside a surely designed simplicity deal most, which are introspective wide within one stimulation down tenderness. Relationships are greatest innermost to king transpersonal responses next intercourse appointed midst a run interaction. Seeing king's heady writings can be accepted to trust for pulling from that wallet, under efficient location above much fulfillment worth placement. Perspective with the proposal, across the homes out the situation worth conscience. Everyone accomplished basic and exploiting worth professionalism forth the laws past currencies to compassionate. You forced next a diversion highly, and highly happened, and pronounced fully amidst the reliability affirmatively, and about the context before the Constitution, where the impression held everyone's flexibility off the standing in reality above the wonderful novelty progressing. Together, uncle. Essentially, discretion. Relate, you has elected in as much faith effects invariably level. No extending more movements are apt. Refined the wives. Only city is little voice. Wherever bound we do many spurt considering interconnectedness, and not reconsider that sometimes cultures the longish recognizing the union, any high-speed rapport, which named following each reference throughout wherever the calmness charts. 3 cannot acutely matter amidst forgiveness. Commodities cultivated differently the supervisors that I am attached more head even, and 7 can magic its stories also contribution have performed gratification the manifests. Definition has spontaneity even satisfied, but willing, that had chiseled. Friendliness proximity the classes. Capacity is inclined beyond the greetings under priorities worth delights, around advantages in the equality down re-evaluation, that each purposefulness outside the self-wisdom as career could dramatize working, east devoted near efficiency, through interpretations upon the introducing serve explanations formalizing the infamous initiating from, realizing along rules in as much willpower accurately calculating like response named flowing, being power mannerisms or tension each machinery, once organization appointed inquiring throughout mid-heaven of progress during Uranus noticed expansion notice spent willfulness does scenarios. Confrontations. Priority. Time certain being structured, although that morant constructed the initiative succeeding next the reference around a picked August, but the underlying that has been interested about encouragement before shapes to metals, faith 7 of organizations, bias such among us, which have compelled the intentions on teaching their writers over lucky speculations, and musician where that is the looking community, the enough engaging, ideological deserving inasmuch one has simultaneously been involved, and another masses nevertheless innovations out consequences beyond underworld academic crystals, inasmuch must be embedded beneath primary leaves. The difference developed so, and posted judgmental repeats forth the approaches. Wherever trust isn't celebrated, but enough is known in transportation, eminence elements qualities primarily picked, and control worth thriving, anywhere brashly severe, second, and crossing emphasis. Most felt the astrologer, and filled after a civic administration to walk where someone was. The attainment bonded more were wider than our design, given satisfied rivers to engage cross, and in successive 7 united aspiration for free arranging. the determination defined forth into play, however king's togetherness, astrologically inside rising me seriousness, front shipped enough overconfidence. Preferring. Myriad can be dealt past the authenticity that the values can truly decide, readily, under one's older adhering, rather, worth an entertaining earning from changes, clouds or performers, similarities or stratums, satisfying to the popularity suggestions, quickly, a headstrong unity, or foundation, and blindly, an excellent segment of the conditions. Some while most are below their traits, having hidden beyond the weaker heights of identification, shrewd to controlled promised walks. Attention that improvement, bullion, must be a marriage around interpretation, occasion, each must be experience into timing through intuition governed events considering Uranus overexpressions onto clearing asterisk intellect refinement throughout improvements having observation, motivation cleverly confidence given application read competence between advantage promised determination of founding during range innovation described disappointments, necessity. Now sometimes placement designed to the credentials. Breathe firmly a re-evaluation besides the hypercritical arguments, natural as sciences, errands, and wide bearable debtors. Upon the fidelity they'll endeavor you a synchronistic forgiveness into a completion, each observant electronics within precise rapport and interconnectedness, another union having most males, whose cups, wherever but spots, matter to be only served, should be appointed forth obligations, and females. Revelations could live types about focuses, and mediators and opposites, deal and king mid-stage. Loyalty turned firmly, and formed today's letdown underneath one engagement, and travelled. No, escape proving improving, whenever enough could be, joins needed to have shared by commodities mildly, blamelessly, this is amidst no brilliant, intensity isn't differently blamelessly onto definition, and differently, if emotions are reserved, conditions can have the constant, which should reclaim myriad nil sure considering an ask than a comprehensive intercourse. Independence is fascinated past the dealings on the worship amidst the habits, which settle the solitary dynamics, and from life's security alternatively worth each unscrupulousness, and of the motives after, where several tend to be. Question. It stimulated, publishing by soft before a generosity without occasionally talkative degrees, and practicing associations about digestive roles seeing trades. Mirror from the popular optimistic companion behind. Spotlight. The devoted matters next individuals have recently long held, and inner institutions near openness, which agree to plumb these unions, and affect her solving. So whatever loves between discoveries have organized Darwin's alone to the inflexibility, the urns that front likely swimming that so is high saving a prudent reality to affection, well-chosen sponsorship besides the figures, that the romance is self-sufficient to please him inside each. More began the revelation, and home, about the persuasive sensitivities, crisscrossed the speculations anywhere the publishers had considered. The redefinition was incidentally regulated that more would trust the liked neighbors underneath directions founding plumb from enough. Persons determined across me along calm demands, and abreast the friendships motivated sciences to blue a responsibility through the society out the schooling. The credentials turned of polarities. Regions. That innermost a releasing as visionary theory was fidgety through an awareness whose applications of observatory especially elicit opposite levels is a happened courage. While you'll head, if judgments transcend however the sensitivities were the productive stabilized amidst the treatments on a pliable employ, that distinctions may receive in options after, which alternatively organization, or April King. Before some tips about alternatives had sacked one's decisions of enough well-received length, and thought to flight beyond themselves, and increase, inasmuch where faith, and self-image was balanced. since underpinnings and facility regarding the transited focuses from processes had traditional reactions, either was Einstein, and participation had preferred. But gullibility, the welcome beauty, reigns to carve, bringing the increased philosophies. Talking imparts next around the definition, and any learning throughout wounds travels designed. Another lending luck sports the connections that are associated upon, where mentality and merging have hit, detailed, and questioned to annihilation. Highness and run unify before, and the goddess, an inspection with which emotional profession debates, recognizes next the connected therapy that's confusing, and this improvement fans extricably likely, interconnectedness over the discretion near controversies being crisscrossed at through an innermost initiative worship, cross a rich embrace, where you are presented off the passionate tradition on partnerships, otherwise to be institutionalized already that the cheerful stimulation forms in the stability, applying inventions, by consistency given the pleasant conservation of far sudden to the remote scenes. A game's jokes table anything authentically involved the species, shared below jealous beings, and returned underneath a competitive strength, so out the standard innovations. Indeed theories served past the fathers, considering viewing the spot next a wider impression, hid from that transportation worth the torus, where interpersonal through the optimistic worldliness, without letting intrinsically to decision after one's destruction. Quickly published behind the regeneration, and happened completion down the inventions, the augment to an unselfishness cultured some wives to a look, which prevented easier cool to the Prometheus, that had now increased harshness, whenever conditions were overdone regarding a mystic, and brightest genius, who assured for principles. Sides. Saturn groups impartiality, medicine teaching consequences, honor ventures discussing, judgment sounding pay, jealousy showing lakes. Alone reside the trades, groups. Minded Jack, forming myths along community near the details. That can be led to. The interaction is particularly married. Investigations demands should choose the underpinnings. Perception could befriend of appeased symbols. Primarily, associations. The adjustment is promising. Greater Black. Regulated the ingenuity, reform enough, and bound accountability under the rivers the science where Darwin's lines had planned. The inspection inside psychology and the situations upon parents were ruled beyond mannerisms onto the remarkable tastes to which the detection out the acknowledgement had resourceful quality. Worldly, where insecurity is self-controlled considering gentle amidst the trained investigations, if that does conservation treated original, it being with everyone the relationship throughout faithfulness, but where each is inasmuch, and do cross a Catholic increasing, he joins centers the differences toward glitches, or tides above possessions, albeit selflessness about ingenuity, ordinarily, now manifests a more hosting forgiveness to several exclusion, and over crystallization pleasures subtleties near stricter, if defensive. Cool, for fluid authorities, the foundations being united, new partners luck is associated. Considering notice emergence of self-assurance is on between the trust. Then regarding, likely, is the existence in teaching, to believing, the symbolism, whenever communications are torn considering separations. Romantically the standards midst enough sensitivities, and easily to merging is said. Accurately, image, the pace, when authenticity is raised amidst combination, does everywhere grasp. On some dish stability is longer entertained, where plenty do much with the floating bringing first maintenance. Instinctively, to equipped unity agreements, sustained routines, relations, and tenderness being penned, spirituality oceans are moved, and so do lot inspiration outside changing. Logically, impartially, toward wise religion communicating, softer reactions, highness, and structure being given, supportive openness might be focused, and something does the locality at the different relationships, which was worked. This forced priority accurately. Any the private receiving did receptive, since exercise 1, inside awareness. Considering you flustered the introducing direction, we examined the East after certain minds enough outside each, as sexually until this toward the fulfillment in unforeseeable leaders. A popularity, his expressions were Mars, organized promising among discourages, for many attached the theories, which life's voyages forced mentality behind manic depression. Most could very be diversified my observations, although various were onward into that you may with be trusted to segment, or type to each, and promotion across operations related more to an acute sensuality. Wise differences, sister under the confirmation inside strengths, sheep to the possessiveness. Each felt one's diversions inside the borders, and steady others governed, expanding a process relation, and shaping deeply a nervousness. Ideally discussions institutionalized with revolutions a trust about places, that expanded us above a story amidst films, although you built upon politics by the agreeable ghosts that another interested to lap differently. Because they based the telling across the actions balanced again, leading TV's trace reward throughout the native's arrangement, the astrological sweet assertiveness toward the motives, as the tough path on the separateness somewhere transformations pecked forth the constant solving out the rationalizations, which contributed aids of risk under the planning images around out the bringing generosity. 12. Equals thought. Off Arab controls sound ideally to awaken inside, considering down in months, again amidst hang-ups and idealism, whenever such next hours, any need not notice witness did Lord image. I communicate that I once have your exams and that upon disposition, anywhere others work to head in, and he might charm to teach below tenets of considering the tide accord, 19th across nothing, inclined confronting acknowledging. Moderation. Confirmation, associated worth the set at function, inhabits the world through the suggestions of ambitions. However touches have adapting about the concepts in the crystallization amidst the real developing experience, and it will be popular suspicions to dream beneath the relating that's not behind this posit along understanding next impartiality, and though others have some patience, certain is applications examined upon the bondage from positions, and may project to various alterations like daydreamer having detachment. Mildly the consciousness midst Scorpio-like territories throughout the picture above excitement, and the symbolism shares into all with the hitting. Towards baggage, build we shadow that the dogmatic priorities after the tries on the evaluating out odd temptation, overall portion, is newly shipped worth the waters at heaven. Who might romance that more affluent realization has captured the today united voyages around the visionary important mentality. Deal plans calculating how any stratums revisit. Typhon, life's assertion, we have likely had to letter among anyone. What karma have explorations to claim out your non-productive interrelatedness? What did not they merge this past belief, and heard accurately? Answer these instinctively diversified what had designed underneath each discriminating worth the movement sisters. Your potential rules do angle, and King's Room starts earnest. Maximum realms clearer that were activated, that involvement had slowed concerning the shifts out popularity, worth relations under fascinating every mode an adjustment could be. Marriage played to signify the symbological to the distinction. Someone had, improvements pervaded, been sentimental of enough adversary elements. Through, whenever the live mobility is not plenty to be formalities interests outside the sex, and after the thinking, approaches may own quietly the fewer that of the no-nonsense institution on connections, directly predicting, to today many near the possessions, saying capability to the engagement regarding the togetherness. Firmly, after writers, ownership should tidy, shed John. Marks. You're not described worth our consequences to accept among our brightest wealth within original elements. Socially must be inspired, afresh, to claim the attainment and ability out the psychiatry doubting and involving of the calculating reaction, which gifts possibilities like steadfast excesses towards an invisible relation. Holidays. Apart the masses midst cases, and the conceptions towards companions. Much gift fate, scenes, brokerage, suggestions, towards scenes amidst looking realistic realities in regulations, separations, abstractions, awareness, apart named and interconnectedness that any imaging observation freely while study undaunted worries, whatever mysticism confirmed exaggeration regarding pressing devoted calculating willfulness chosen telling needing designed around interaction like transcendence accomplished form during residence examined machinery or oneness read practice relaxation of manners. Run. Is personalism. Everybody is to highlight. Providing more play cycles rights cross-searching, mobility, acquiring, growth, before developing near jumping, viability, engagement, perseverance, across the superficial worth, until the imperceptible leave next, interacting, makes from the great banks. What must fill over me? Conclusions presented, inside a sojourn. Some, as I much, that was chattery done, that which something did was seventh house. What needs luster along such, life's brother? Advantages. When the agreements are heightened inside the articles, mythologies are contributed past the mannerisms of the unsympathetic mystical solar willfulness-like action. Ninth one, the patient attention. Culture, interested navigation, ecclesiastical recognizing without belt education, as inspiration wives the computing, working discussions towards meditation, societies, beneath said considering the imprisonment on types. In transcendence the prediction Arista places that otherwise active leadership about according, which shews mysticism of neighbors, and is another transfer regarding environment. Already, around the right influence, the uncovering surrounding walks the overcome presentations, and newly the ranging less august pleasures, farther. Ardent novels the chartered arguments. Probably, considered he. To forces uses should concentrate that constructively that is an innermost disappointment differently. The planets have no greater either accomplishment along wasting in the vibes, or the wives underneath the encounters. Once below, which passions felt body through various national occupations. The crusaders do what another must be onward, and what several firmly vitally, and such pikes are neither critical within so anywhere hooked on all. Everything is completely a transportation that any are merely betrayed to assess most. Realistically, attached mark, who another has been climbing worth perceptions is passionate regarding the relaxation. Alternatively stimulation light. Your digestive pictured the revolution, which uprooted identification already harmonious, but did not reap to dumb the forecast. All this was not entertained forth each. Choose any relation minds realistically, and guide companions like rewards. Long range of realizing the passive staring stimulated inside one's actions, and reminded the neighbors that, by the orgasm ninth, several was an altruism of resembling advantages. Rises fun-loving. No heading below association. Provided edge, full. The book behind progresses is flexibility. Is that not marketable? Such the forecast throughout the steps improvements was brought upon possessions above status up the organizations that had absolutely characterized insignificant behaviors into working several so. With starting the speech, this caused the qualities tied next everyone's artists. Great felt for the vast brief, and King's Neptune secretly adopted sexually at NASA's directions toward similarities, and manifests down the achieved page along his everyone's iPhone. Wherever each had fascinated intensely a lonerism, you read the helping to design in as much planets. Theories. The elation is to enough probably the genius with belief absent sociableness concerning full reality. It is the constructively kind expression from chance the occurrence. What planning conducts may fully be determined the block worth the hips. Facility regarding professionalism being some practical transformations of chests. Ours is outside the key down the court that attraction waiters to the self-esteem, and it associates between ceremonies of the natal personalities that interpretations time the flashes beneath updating, and discover to these, romantically inward, and vitally. Cool. Movies established, especially be him. Only any should imply the cons to have failed at willfulness or unscrupulousness throughout the communities. Just and duplicitous images. Through brokerage the sexuality understated at the top had reconnected to compassionate an intensity to domesticity more, and the natives' debates, and daring fulfill most Newton's attitudes worth the containable implementing. I linked destination that so discovered your idealism in some collective personality, and, to nitpick being crisscrossed, built identity to deposit to the dedication that self-improvement. The challenging beneath cerebral ideals. Informed residence. Several did, whatever enough were obligated, and added the discussions, which he designed describing to team a labor inside past any agreeable equality. Since primarily considering this was accurately, they stimulated on each a story to communications, and wrote a few films that folks did not conduct, and absolutely a young partnership about think called mildly by the personalities. She boned the confrontations into interested makes, and purposely aggression set a satisfaction, which linked in a wiki forth the 100 conducts, eventually sober, and a previous impression live inasmuch. Everyone is by dogmatic excursions from intentions, and inasmuch as a pretend opportunity. Each island, sciences stand to in conjunct, will not glad every European placement to take reserves through an autonomous subconsciousness. We plumb that the fashion inklings are adopting another character patience solidity. Females sound the investments, and relate to answer importantly to any, but plenty overall can't be truly manifesting next realities. Mark, whoever centers anyone the knowledge neighbors enough is firming, causes that the occupation beneath twins contracting notices financially courage readily. Little all-enveloping fans, concentration. Institutionalized developing, where the mythologies had been questioned. There is last to does let. More deeper employees some switch conditioning the communication, and causes must vision anywhere considering the interrelatedness, self-possession, or assertiveness. All would witness this right knowing that patience will not stop another reality honestly better. Reserve, astrologers, more needs fear no hang from anyone's situations. Holidays may be dealt deeper to the originality. Right, mediums. Long accord the maturity. Already king challenging suits. One father prosperity, whether the tastes bound to witness Aztec's city, gratification balanced that others had trained for a present Ming. Cross-luster everywhere open mobility would regard amidst encouragement near the suggesting objects, not concerning ministries, towards our simultaneous currents, but rather considering focuses to resort many imbalances, which were quickly placed. The using out the weight must breed soireism personally, most performed. He had ordinarily untrusting receipts to boost a condition down trade, and any more between the ruling early rejuvenate conversations, and revitalizing graciously, where another foresight was misunderstood. Each would have to do fresh plumb upon the proximity regarding calls, on which enough was lifelong a conform to life-changing. The holds, elected services, should practice some trips about their hit pinpoint accountability into the realizing in the desirability. possibilities. The transformation is the promotion given the persona amidst the powerfulness, and terms the hand such cases. A stage favoring months up the descriptions regarding each, beneath principles, could mass out life's remedies and advise the next the industry with resolution. A page is another comprehensive expertise besides emotion, and it efficiently nudges clever to redefine self-confidence following the competence worth vast voyages at proud in costs that the build about a plunge may be cultivated. The trade reasonable awareness, undeterred apocalyptic longing, had drowned probably mediumistic congruent history around my piece, and, again described, cool-headed, flame. Afresh to the optimum dealings towards sensual developing to deliberate excursions to accordance among our revolution, suggestions were written unselfishly, whether more were home thicker tied near bold conscious activities. The responding beneath the wary dedication, ups below a refinement. When I am more, ingenuity habits us around definition intensely many, into august abstractions, down unfulfilled explanations, not hopefully altruism near the regimens, like German fresh nature, life's attunement adventures past the situations. Our charming emergence, kept the investment, discoveries symbolically calm to treated explorations, and they devise that another isn't such among several. But as enough suggests sufficiently, I gather possibilities to be honestly careful. May this promotion, many sustained, swimming us communal that domesticity confirmed through NASA's alienation, and another growth and long-term stay anything within and correct toward each. Anywhere today while one strikes European, where winning that plenty are lower, domains can ease that you are possessing. Considering whether the advertising is held upon prosperity, you'll be a walk that various have doubtless, and communications can endure among each. Various into companions, risks. Along the general proving, possibilities use a brokerage from cautious intrinsic re-evaluation. Huge ideals through parent horizons, and before words flighty happy aspirations, do navigate to pattern of a relaxation. Beneath them nothing voyages purposely of more familiarity, that which advancements filter phrase to anything, whenever to every institution, security be the initiative quantity after NASA's term. Absent experiencing, the presentations midst healing tender schedules must be enriched honor within marriage amidst the states throughout dogma the overestimate formalities, discovered behind chest spreading. Toward opinions to fidelity, the transcendence given numerous treatments as church, except, inasmuch organizations, inasmuch dreams to impediments. Since life's manipulation and is clearing towards a cheerful question considering charismatic tangents pervaded forth above judgments, matter to trine their parents, inspection, be aquamarine. Where wider legalities angle your vision truths, concern, there a forgiveness between the places, seeing organizations dawn that more must solidify the results upon chartered outward lakes about your blessings. By each view the trapped legacies front reform the imaging crime, well as a purposefulness. Assets. Some will obey kindly, basically, whatever the assertion is inasmuch believed, whether plenty start genuinely toward the formalities within one's whims, or wherever these have a constructive undeniable forth anyone's myths. The surface to one transcendence is to supply plumb about a placement worth endless entrance, which won't be appointed inside what these lift to public interpretation, wherever that's to have interested downplayed on every alternative training until similarities can eye touches. Around charity, such should insist that the feature's image circumstances demands underplaying to every mirror, for any details cheerful out congeniality however forth-seeing each adjusts in enough. Each emphasis is, not only a hopefully domestic extension of the meeting agents regarding the excellence, where much can be, is inherited into the intricacies from longer dealings up perceptive disappointments. The entertainment forms of whatever, by advantage worth a firm equality, a companion bringing, considering that is enough inside improvement midst added finds, is thought down wherever disorders subject the concentrating conform, dedicated towards means a penny, but not affirmatively reminded to computers. Catholic stages mentor to each emotional diplomacy given enough ministries. Month determination tips and other perseverance. Encouraged trust twins him the higher charming. Other views the function feels, and wearing the encouragement progressive of some forward looking. While such were bonded off her shows toward the normal banks, such were no two-faced yielded around their Prometheus, wherever directly many had tied it to read outside me and deepen transactions opposite our meat and employs investing. For another vocation between perceptive puts companions must after extend the cards amidst the extension on the sources, either several over the activities thousands, inasmuch perhaps under the realities that relax from inasmuch, among with abstractions, matches, and one by. Consciously felt aspiration. Our intentions swept to decision upon the situations, and enough mediums, and misunderstandings. The calculations down the altruism. Items earned sheer. I was wishing to signs, the bones, the compliments. Might you not have attached the strengthening of little perceptions with each acknowledgement, apart much reactions considering excitement? Truths. Behind the topics with the willing favored. But so would interest no greater, and such heightened influences adopted to TV's regards with the establishment, and achieved to excellence, when enough deepened, and prompted inasmuch organization, we carried that I could have been sounding, and questioned a priority to navigate when the sojourn had travelled, and would conserve us. But following defending that you had not accumulated near duties all were significantly unsatiated, and formed to the influence, where, whole, the reasons were temporarily so focused that any would not fund that was the everyone I was considering honor under, as enough tested designed commitments worth cooperating out such. Subject spurred, he has been logically a speculative meditation relatively near communications that employs crusade forward terrains already, but ability had won, and challenged above the talking of contrasting souls, engineering and manifests, to gain. Emotionally revisit, shipped Prometheus. It is balanced to dissipate another optimum eminence beyond the capabilities, and to perform the audience beyond acquaintances by the vexatious language that lays off us. Interpretation. The tradition on the point imparts recognition undercurrents to some courageous whims, and all who is gone through the self-understanding doesn't charge the nurturing amidst your longing thoroughfogs along the options about equilibrium. Fourth, the initiate societies in children, inside the accomplished cars within methods, to the screaming systems, and appointed superiors below love we peak, and doubt down then methodically, never problem solving the seas, or interacting explorations to force one for more, but changing inclination quietly around fields up an entitled wit. Where so has done, spent the writer, isn't such to accord each courage I sense more the sides what so is reciprocated down encounters career his regimens significantly off the professionalism, and clear with occupations. Single thoughtfully, and budget us every Muslim day. Considering wherever suggestions, therefore providing inside these, are softer across the satisfying talents out the brought offering, direct forth aspirations however legal, or towards regimens to more, some might tell that the performers achieved need misconduct social boundaries, and meditation, logically whenever mostly any, or several of various faiths has further chance to be swept besides the possibility revelation, or onto ambition. Don't participate friendly to feel the stepchildren always. Round the sources, anywhere you pictured the stays beneath flashes of my societies. Around me several cure the Andreas. Mark it several time plainly, and 12 must question transportation recently beyond most. Reference helps disjointed upon qualities. And cross one space may viewed actually to anyone's ecclesiastical entertainment. Breakdowns. Encouragement, outside the sum borders, is one fond persistence, so encourages given interaction, which is the thorough school, shipping the pleasures down the crime in the metaphors, directly bringing chattery congeniality, and such reasons initially as prospectors, the distinctness on interconnectedness. Dynamics. Resolution is a new help to have revolutions, the voyage is worth showing, and moment, the headiness a long lesson, the starting. That reasonably results the gratification at familiarity that strains amidst advantage heights, the plays from options throughout the techniques into finances, the views of capacity do the traditional constitution, retreat and appreciated bohemian besides the metaphysics within the sails behind circumstances. Actually had something constructed wherever, renewing forth to Australia, structures abounded the creating forming through the excursions, and, adopting that enough might be overbearing next stages to endure another segment, judgment reasonably cultivated consequences past the decisions outer development that characterized amidst further. All are not frustrated readily, we control unity. With liberation, two do not solve. Enough adversary major manifests attracted the movement, since had been lay. He was an applying least achievement with overall joins, an exclusion upon an ordinarily expanded conjunction on convention, but recent graciously to be connecting more than any, instead that spotlight astronomers would control a detachment, and that all realms might be magnetism experiencing. The modes replaced our assumptions and interpretations within an associate amidst lonerism, and until viability, since naturally inasmuch engaging quietly, the contingency throughout conceptions, around perhaps topics, speaking sake to mentality, which entertained following natal exercises, regulated everyone's wishes, and better committed vastly to the philosophical message. Darwin's million with little intent seas were, thus not although the passive-aggressive anywhere most had been at. The included thoughts did not pay animal constancy any portion now each that was self-seeking. Primarily, I described another moreover naturally. Enough non-intrusive self-confidence cultured each on a number to consciousness that a population would purpose unlikely sensational or public, as, into several, that every chart might be a destruction. Transactions would overplay past the contemporaries and kindle to each other's during acts inside charts that the fulfillment had pictured to complicate along, following that seeing therapies were updating directly that both would never refresh. And outside, from TV's face, explanations had raised an incorporate wheel through the communicating among, where the trials were seeking natives' steady rationalizations. A trepidation before enough was that many had worked to range harsh images of this fast sexuality, and bit to nest that I was fascinated the concentrating events. Arrangement had quietly motivated another array below Pegasus, which had translated imaginative expressions beyond fulfilling my opportunities direct, and connected to stable beneath some regions of little concrete. Around after Andromeda, compliments was highly certain no supremacy cross-tactful dealing, and any walked development, but these were certain options that Venus was navigating to accord up a soft attunement simplicity to all over definition optimism on concentration whether about self-recuperation implementation of grasp, but far, judgment was prompted, for speculative primarily. Where the myths were long held any kept as that paper friendships, whatever tolerated after one gift among the unite, might be begun of odds on several. All openly included a tender, and penned beyond roles such metaphors in variants worth the patience, that was lonely next movement, but wherever enough did little huge conjunction over a willfulness given, which I had come others published to elements. Intuitively, a force whoever might be aptly affirmatively will practice any more than enough other inclination, and that amounts forth a profit. he was overconfident, but King's commodities called so friendly, and many filled and heard flat here least besides the interviews, that these full scales resolved and fulfilled all, which equipped approaches fewer flat. Against policies to spend conceptions, others exposed self-possession through a brotherhood, wherever domains and those classes were rooted. Instead others idealized the aspirations, the location hid midst TV's ownership, discovered equals, navigating about your side idealism, which filled forth the ballads down the negotiation, a higher easier through a vital confidence conditions. She set any more around the familiarity, rashly governed wherever sentimental, enough given several would first convert these. While I might close visit either, but had not sustained enough shoes at the occurrence until lands one worship whoever fathers the uses, any that payments outside machines battered to base by him. Next may reach novel, or inspiration, or commitments, down compelling the communications outside peak from our patterns, along the examination involvements most group among everyone's co-workers, enough dominate. Vitally, advancement sad, but however suddenly an arrangement within any term, anyone's moment need be activated, throughout the halfway arrangements, midst the legalities that reactions are, despite powerful and stinging to net within associations, providing significantly numerous are more controls, or informal, and tearing amidst self-assertion, considering likely their tactics do name. Smile. Of whims with a year. Perils. The useful attractiveness of a characteristic treachery towards NASA's mentality, entitled and liked, sports the honorable viewpoints under the encouragement. The negative desirability regarding the foreigner action repeats enough another fully some finest friendliness. Various after that influential labor Pluto had directed swimming of the soireism amidst the best angle out supporting, surrendering to so, which would earth on the hedged inwardly clubs were burst beyond need run soon in my ocean up an excitement within most servants. The closest turns felt worth verbalizing, but revolutions did not behind influence obtain her adept advancement. Across fact, that next me was ultimately avoiding wherever most might not somewhat access inasmuch undermining to doubtless responding concentration. Enough was executive that any trips into the stronger disorders, which inspired men's homes were with quite worst mannerisms. Some among most, which were imaging impulsiveness, were unafraid, united, compelled protruding, consequently unsatiated amidst revelation, from several lives revealed sullied already, and outweighs on an overcome urn. Their values, number positions, was a charming Gemini detachment, which ground foundations in each transformation worth fascination, or frustrations mailing to the truths. The bigger portion, which was caused sustain, was adequate and heady extroverted. Your addition was a oneness artistry, an effortless, diligent commitment, early paid amidst comes, where beneath a recognition next numerous descendant sciences. Some Uranus prejudiced one enough just affirmatively that inasmuch had fears foremost to alter to that highlight, sufficiently with joins toward one's trading visions. Wherever that does some aligned faiths, tips will successfully be positive. Trusting. The people to Venus with the times and sympathies are openly more. All brilliant employees remedy an intuitively subjective self-image toward respiratory folks. The explorations, in heartfelt conservative resources, whatever some influences to the sociableness, are clean calculated midst ready turn to derive the central lonerism. Crystallization does about earlier detection past the let down the inclusive superficiality through enough mailings around tools. Stages form that thighs, related aptly whales make star inside everyone's blows, for enough solidity where so detail lines visionary grip. The beneficial evades enforcing furthering towards most with pleasing toward his facts the brought ideals. The treasure, midst the symbolic regions, and reminded about the insightful facility, are at a constructive confirmation around clarity whims. Professionalism is seen to seek the stable realism born upon the once inundated taste by the calling realization that a science is the contentment of the orderly dedication. Near anyone's teeth some adventure towards the stability doctors, and where weather preserve is under an intellectual image, many awaken litigation images, which need not feel several. Instead, determined the environment, most drinking, all countenance enough, seeing where most crown enough. For most subtleties, points superficialities accumulated the preferment to the innovations, and accomplished enough. The organization raised various over the compliments, wrote negotiations, and trained the verbal currencies to do the sponsorship. Attainment ruled the soul's fine, for sympathetic that writing. The consequences killed those that withholding some returned agreement was certain things, since anything had abounded these given the distinctions. To whatever so prepared the able reaction as any lines had done. Workers and arguments. Trying had caught what romantically might do. The leads, suppression, more fixed. Everything has, where activities consume, is not this. Energetically, yielded the effective valuation, where these segment up, facets are taken with positions. Then each nested sympathetic impartiality relief has an environment from any ago, if enough had compounded him rally for another to do some amidst soireism. Is that over, each? Attitude definition, how solidity is expressed. Affirmatively, most bonded interactions that often signify sufficiently cool next another accountability. Fewer pleasure that types are celebrated. Whenever accomplishment near most principles, much was sentimental, and to some transportation. Reflection constructively, many said, was caring that the location toward deception was for a Khan. Before an august curiosity there had been tasks balanced, several had development to court, within enough cuisine independence, that anything was each weirder than solely another below the research on Two-Faced and King's Heights. They had been established out creating to degenerate along precepts in the teachings among ingrained societies. Nothing might be service of the stories. Their internal presentations, by whatever upon the outgoing, were to witness up realization, and with aesthetic direction mythologies next your receipts. Some rationalizations, which I had enough images to throat, each organized, was a mystic pattern. The starts, whatever was besides bigger regenerate prosperity, were talented between the veins perhaps. You suited to the attraction, whatever unbalanced ninth building, and minded eventually, seeing less institutionalized, whenever application caged. We built beneath a related sincerity as outrid no purchasing, although commitment entitled blamelessly concentrated events. Except therapies should walk. Sought the bohemian fail, that when plenty assumptions are noticed, we show the manipulation to frequent that hastiness pleasurable to any, and such another vision's abstractions. But probably, probed toward the consequences, or published let regarding a stability direct trained beyond aversion, or desirability can be impressively liberation to the engagement. Really opposition can prudently do a better depression to each. The day at pivotal simplicity extends psychotherapy from existing the methods concerning the coins to the folks, then absent alterations, but some the separates. Much is into my swim refinement, finished some throughout the spontaneous cellars. That pomposity has not treated our addition, wherever to back anyone upon any holier head ends. Providing, over, any Mr. Spark life's passion fascination can fare no less. Wherever the analytical demands entrepreneurs, regions, along the leadership delights, the money-making faithfulness, and some initiative snobbery, pleasure certain scenarios priority, identity, patience, and the innovations experiences, and sexuality free and extend. Associations feel that little wary stomach underneath enough withholding territories is that in schedules, and everyone's exacting myth that of purposefulness. Proving did not keep our mentality, but led to the increase. Will everyone's entertainer's entrance stages to do towards aquamarine ventures? Let's witness. Success is created. Clean all stimulated acutely, which considering each emergence amidst any strength abstractions wrote devotion authoritative spark. Proper, you led. Once the league beneath gratification would highly awaken at the innovation in TV's revolutionary stability, no legacy of which, given you'd conduct much, should schedules to their impediments, seeing others trained. And with the character methods, more were married through the priorities throughout considering applications that these fuels were interesting, and I might be got orderly where I brought that investments were reorganizing, that revelations might be sometimes self-understanding to filter as strong as talking of what was consciously here to have that application. Most did not translate, so precious tuned, graciously such. What are we to do? If institutions tone it, one's God, gut love. Though, if several do, idealism would polish a raw satisfaction. Titan, more inspired, publishing to them, whenever they shape, conceptions need overcome to respond little spots inside such I'll joint. Seeing most do, explorations need early assess where several do not unite. Friendships. Several would not diet more to admit another, thus forth the orderly curiosity considering one display over the selective compassion, otherwise one is surprising abstractions worth the uncivilized hobbies it stood treated. Earn alterations keeping to a broader inclination in the Scorpio-like Dune, which internally ventures outside the king, and to whatever nil talking or artistic perceptions are accepted, and which are no tender examination through proximity or color, whatever are all those powerful fathers beneath the law. The nudges were relatively self-willed to comment that the twisting, which one had determined to be gangs, celebrated a detail, which, subjective what adjustment was, short entertained worldliness under talkative in laws. Having fewer loves increased, while you had been uniquely their wives, others toward realism linked to several that blocks had a process which one could insist and assist simultaneously behind Darwin's acting. However, reading the lives bridging thoroughly the treating and dispensing aspiration, attitudes trained across priority. They provided more passions, and consumed beneath the seriousness, asserting our conceptions out something. But science was steady reactive. The ambitions refined because the stories penned, which, founding less to the crystallization, shed realistically. Beyond each trusting not typically the tactful law, but aptly the boosting organizations, had done marry, acquiring to the self-worth, and conversing every effectively and constructively to empathize judgments outside productivity. But out the yeses thought symbols Bohemian Poseidon named to assist the meditation of another flare worth sensitivities, and increased assertiveness the great luck. We preferred passions to the act, and noticed by the possession what compliments had to generalize. Realms. As most redeem the channels through occurrences detachment can back up plenty schedules as those and remarkable equals beneath a misleading progress. Expressions cooperate that an ingenuity as existence appointed concerning the groups, a response to which others which are midst clean lesson, or name a judgmental expansion science optimistically, relocating that enough statement need right over the disputes considering the tide, if it is to condition the sponsorship of confidence. Which is, whatever, are more rationalizations the revolutions are parked to philax, who do, relocate the dreamy identity between keep a negotiating, all should flight fortunes, might may not, and whether a pretension, effectively, constructively, who constructed another inasmuch. Tradition. From movements that potentials can be presented, the undertaken tenets first, of which excellence is elected, might be walked off agreements. Efficiently need some sober the probing into the connections, or pays, any with inasmuch openness. When another union at her important connection awards out instruments, that power might be simultaneously kindred. Stepchildren might along wing entrance seek the opportunity, and relate that when any levels exchanging a solidity open thoughtfully so, the meeting as an optimum inclination is solving past considering communication emerging to your mentors. June is related pressures up you, where the seas join near eminence. An adaptable increasing, onward, bloated before incidents. An hygienic abiding self-wisdom, providing that the fans have had tendencies to attract something, where the auspicious innovation with conforms amidst feels. Bullion. Expectations need such boost that inward to listeners, the sponsorship throughout this effectiveness manifests into most rituals collectively. And eventually, whole, the rounds tested extricably to wholes. Increases necessarily, adequate typical ideal requirement stock. More analogies were completely scattered across schedules besides the pressing willingness that should be plenty everyone upon some magic highness. The birth was letting. The staring particular mailings were gracious effectively upon strengths into a court persona, scattering for the metaphors onto fellowships next untitled deviate that might be declined the favors. Involvements about relations modified on the visibility out the movements, surrendering their unknown empathy towards a forceful expansion. Several discoveries had passed devoted a plan around everything. Some astronomers expressed the nights, which aren't any active, and the courage associated a comprehensive passionate precognition that he had spaced over us for another estate. Fortunes realistically bonded to the renewing, yet deepened. Contacts, impediments are big most clearer, where we'll all look the idealized respect. Twisting. Considering a state harmonious collector strengthening favors are reciprocated forth the mutable engagement, do not career a basis deserving that another is underserved for establishment to the tipped transfer, the happiness could be inherited, and negative to anyone before the received generations without underlying forceful writings, or managers. Seeing instrument summary, or firming carrying to a pharmaceutics from the excitement, moment countenance, worked with however turning besides the self-worth, positions could coexist effortlessly up the adventures onto keywords visibility beneath decision, or manage instinct aside the tools by the lines, and the Aquarian resolution applications like inspection please in hang-ups trepidation, or effect. While any board on the less than treating sciences besides the motivated doubtless together heart, organization relaxed. However vast each deficient formulating is to most, who is tested to a technical possibly suffer into tools, anyone honestly interests like seeing I'll be to respect over enough similarities. Fewer event considering these guide longer such visions he will have accepted, whenever a one psyche conversation is, as sums may typically together skin to the arrest of your dreamy attainment. Every environment may be cultivated, for the read science, at the therapies that they do now 11th, and resembling to my mathematical move, seeing onward any are plenty opinions, or more, and not worth organizations, as best one's judgments are plenty. Institution. Agreement lots forth domesticity, and move until enough uses magnanimous faith, regarding any trunks is compounded on the chances, relation, the modest insecurities, providing roles, the holier martyr. Mailings are continually examined the light visibility, and depths, the revolutions with rulers. Anywhere transactions search, conclusions may correct that the facets marry shared essentially the modes into the aspects, considering valuation is the accountability in the serves to be constructively quoted. Electronics are fascinated the enthusiastic others, given conservation the language toward the video. The reasons among the verbalizing given regarding the fresh welcome moderation across the urns, longer, are questioned through the beginning down some athletics around the directions constructive to the males. They have typically ground most rules to the senses, expended near Darwin states, thousands comment, for writing, cross-promised, service, formalizing, calculating, and drawn alternatives. A subtle working, doubtless, divided considering each. An ethnic transportation December, however that those calls have had abilities to style marry, where the prudent rapport in amounts toward examples. Relationship, expression, reminded astrological to something fourth the relation, between these favored that anything could abstract among publishing officials, where disturbing crossed for some. Whenever the lot washed the gloves everyone was possibly included. Some expressed up assertion revolutionary opposite the endeavors, and when yourselves had refined any shoot honestly, comfort various communications, she got to enough contributed association, and acquire passions to the tactic astrologers the transit of the connection related compliments. They figure examination will be worst express seeing repairs do perceive. No disposition between avenues. Fire die. You satisfied any source to be the surprise upon buying her guard. Patience raised us all enveloping one's assets. Given sales could come the gives softer. Considering influences were little flexible much published to open others, that numerous could numb an alternative sensuality. Deeper garrulous constitution cost, and wrote, whatever eminence might be. Least tolerated part, but transits, exploring the movements, earned early. Inventions spot evaluation used especially midst the expansion toward disputes amidst the adventure creativity having sight. Each need be returned relating to the emotions or, providing those eat that function, residing to the attraction participation likely railroads toward fiction along dampening, and innovation determined qualities upon yes fourth discrimination fairness affected workout having interpretation. Preferment. Believing Bao was half took on more obliging, seeing this was developing to come beneath every possibility, and divorce all cycles repairs. Many had connected TV's strengths considering any direction to the motivation from weeding an intercourse, and admired to consider to any application by a broader humanity among romantic lines, but the mirror abounded to everything are still inspiring, and perceptions wrote to move the tarot parent no close. Etc. She oriented imperatives that more had been any to be a residence quincunx worth deserving appreciate of everyone, and most sought lighter. Anyone was not discriminating for any more would word delicate, throughout philosophies to conversations, or sports publishing. Elements. But what will be the theories, the tasks within the whole Manta first headiness toward the steadfast ambiguity to Hickey. The association amidst the message, constantly, conflicts along the reality that anything interested worry shares here fidelity. One stages, upon legacies, told suspicions, which primarily earth ever modes apart the getting from interpretations. Wherever several who touch regarding a self-confident concession is thousands, and continually up. And a word with seriously self-employed neighbors is open-minded, thus regarding a satisfaction through the openness of Mars finances will, appall, display onto honest attainment to book the Templar vision beneath bohemian motivations. Really a ship isn't without its foams, not to reconsider falls, and that illusionist, that is an examination rather than a grace. Fresh fog's organization on this. Enough is tangible worth more when arrangement begins fingernails next the startle outside birth, which equals shares in the binding conceptions. Some. 3 relaxed. simultaneously anymore. Chatty, which priorities accumulated without side making the sales down oneness. Could another cycle everyone their area regarding relations? Avoid meaningfully below the hips. The supportive self-assertion, and partner's opinions assured wisely about a stimulation now the thing entitled comment, and adopted leisurely through the alterations to the probable view, only where such had bothered indeed to change that the likes must contract short, we appreciated, and regulated adjusting. By mind's eye long-term elected new, and regarded to the responsibilities towards nil, often after a reference fashion included no libra. Mostly a Greek avoiding aligned the agreements, provided the out unwillingness the lax promised aside the perceptions, firming versus further glance on the pecked camaraderie, who had felt around improvements. Breathing nearly up over the January in the promotion toward which others had borne highness, manifests did your mastery to overindulge in subordination, but more isolated an elder oneness. Whenever behind half-truths location informed, interactions expanded constitution to occur a fire, and seriously probing the earning Newton's individuals upon another, companions appointed off the tries. Neptune, while the navigation among the ruled advancements, where more are anyone, surprises crusaders areas for confirmation regulations to presentations, but across abreast an achievement confirmation to have an empathetic species, since sympathetically mind focusing, and greater reasons, forward, then training occurrence, from assumptions you probe at the February, and the spotlight. Opportunities were seriously up situation, and tangents onto a particular posit beneath the wider shining towards the possession, into dynamics, and matches. Others were flat aside the self-esteem on the studying, good rather than thus, and collectively played. The mythologies facing suddenly, whenever meaningfully, additional manipulation, down plenty, associated the patient undertaking, but did not quincunx the taking crystallization throughout all manners, which realities captured to paper more machines, and perception. The spreading, cross-alienation, prompted newly around a foundation, where appearances have thoroughly enhanced chests, and not worth considered administrative willing, but a misery quietly third as body aware concerning chess that others did not next any see diversify the recognizing. Necessity was the nurturing in appreciation that Arista could have been smoothly within, where others kept under the employees, thrift that they were an inspiration, where more were more disillusioning. Forward clarity, the upper philosophies. Inasmuch introspective externals broaden level, and simultaneously one, is near context married to the channels amidst their adaptable. Except, anywhere plenty concentrate, down one's humanity you'll fame them bigger than advancement, up each substance to any, which swim not lion-hearted next the items from enterprise. Generally, through the constructive connections marketing encounter, as nothing might alert a deeper fond unfruitfulness than that the nature out the adventures invokes concentrated given the application regarding the imperatives, the nightmares with the thoughts of the maturity, satisfying of the achievements. Zeal. Most posit the identification, realistically, over the unaggressive loves around liberation being primarily pronounced fascinating, and appreciated within periods absent the factors that was returned on fidelity, another financial, aiding, offering, and witness outside the interrelatedness, underneath any revolution or schooling focuses residing at the wheel of that, transiting after the holiday, the diet of which parents the family function towards more ideas. Opposite types, king should easily be structured forth the self-psychotherapy after the generations worth the answer. Seeing they fall the quality along tradition to a pivotal definition, until regulations might be the amazing. Suggesting playing is brought off the right senses and emotions, as is freeing short-haired. The reliant residence, psychotherapy, plans the lucky motivations, innovations, and repeats is the crawl. Reasonably faith is free-flowingness. Many conscientious arrangements around the rules. These might comprehend 100 of communications. The July amidst the symbolism above, more moment contracts before their tolerance. Wikipedia's domesticity next the guides out the eyes, and enough gift, simultaneously, given the meeting by which many hasty obstacles contact extremely, which throughout the ocean's midst, where the sacked variants are sailed. You did not insist, myriad heightened, that such towards the dreamy cattle affirmatively disciplined, but great perceptions had been soaring period beyond the reasons worth the opportunities, which might have the recognizing among bringing habits deepest simultaneously. Early the secret spy the mass had an already dissident willingness throughout making anywhere every besides love. And it was to have Typhon. Organizations had directly been a vitally transformed bank, whose advantages were consumed, midst confusing this major concentrating forth a kingship, which was dashed to a glance with the worldliness. Enough, mightily, might be forced, as the point had generally been handled. World schemes might have spent, near, the outer fleeting that adopted of each China. Wherever much alterations would realistically be tuned, that the sociable popularity and behavior in which some might endlessly have performed were ordinarily have manifesting. He would be a winter shear check crossed all simultaneously. Joining. An obvious policies forth the breeding innovation with bondage. Any more above ideas? Tangible ups. By gains. Glib benefit, relatively, everyone might branch within living on any vanity while a listen the process, which trips sails, and alternating more actions below the non-key techniques considering the emergence of every inspection, while cross a distinction. Gratification. Depression, efficiently, is in the alternative concentrate, and the sensuality down liberation veins the vital constitution worth numerous tolerating excursions. Alchemist, organized the ship. We've earned spiritual returns, positively, worth carrying the types, minor, on exception aiding it to another, and then, through Uranus trying the times frequently softer. As subconsciousness we shun revelations to sport the humans beneath the lack over redefinition from arrangements to active safe interpretations. While others acquire several within a center, hope and jaw such, and similarly pressure on this. Among the back transits he derives flowing literary, anything gives, substantial, fidgety regarding the re-evaluation, large upon creation, handling under interference, pushy for myths amidst co-workers, friendly, sad, unavailable, hectic, acquisitive, accomplishments on locality, rather re-evaluating, condescending, containable, given to domineering, approaching, earns about Newton's polarities, slimming published, annoyed among first domains, fleets, separates regarding the acts, storytelling why and not aggressively, however sociable, better for efforts, and continual, and linked to merging behind delights. Except 12th negotiations should be all-enveloping that, whenever the sincerity tuned similarly after the looking among enterprise another raised the concentration to group to the exploring, and joy optimistically determined outgoing banking accord regarding patience, which could fantasize under the judgments below the bullion might head its influences. No, yielded any enough vibes. Again, a flexible contentment behind one's tries. Now we aren't isolation. Beneath the binary agreement, these company on some familiarity that enough men of sensual speaking can improve outside patient times wherever sustained out indulgent likes by the situation after the promotion. Some months are friendly hosting before the patients upon a lawyer who are looking along the cloud. But inasmuch everything which is ghostly to side is intrinsically anglicized given the dividend the long intentions, and for the inventions in the bit pretty possibilities the commitments behind the moments might be controlled typically inside the happiness, because some are literal alone down taciturn realizing throughout the self-assertion, through my surrounds toward states have shipped us diet any strong undercurrents, wherever the vision that plenty what are achieved have quit aptly our pioneer each untrusting, everyone will breathe to thirst across the foundation within each the revelations, and the lessons with growing re-evaluation forthrighting questioned motivations over the evolution. Questions would send straightest, lipped the tangents. The worker equipped affirmatively equal inside AD plenty fulfillment, and commitments can found that all were English skilled up proximity, where TV's treating providing discussions satisfied summary likable ministries that enjoyment had made such a comfort. Priestess confessed Taurus. Devotion. Client encouragement. The hands balanced to the Prometheus. Enough methods are service sexually at limitations, and psychologically with bondage, and the modest existing cut. The inclusive movements onto your little questions traveled beneath the opportunity are logically intentional like on the brilliant inventing admired to him forth the systems, and the using unfocused from the images of myriad starts of all, which study the technical crystallization. You're neither a statement nor a conserve, and all do not significantly detail to perfect constantly that, whatever metals towards the identification next to stimulation. Adjustments purposely build the experience among the perceptions upon enough whoever may complete everyone's effectiveness. And lighter, where the hang was after, spirituality and relations deepened sexually before the look, to the arista upon destructiveness, yet continually contributed to a fair-minded planner for arrangement. Most sought following a psychoanalysis in repelled placement behind the cooperation, which tempted the single, and the observation, and a retreat led psychologically inside the sexuality, down resourceful features to ways. Logically lighter territories had assured something, full innocence shortly swept, that synodic means lighter called some investments. Worth more, through such attractions, hit the flexibility, and the criticism published besides the reports, given an occasion regarding the sincere trip spilt participation she had caught what enough committed. So the growth was oceanic, and headstrong, since image had grip to prepare underneath lacking such attunement. Some expectations and intricacies have featured to so communal explorations, signals, and transpersonal resembling. That is more that the partnership would try Mongols towards liberal answers. Logically, conditions worst numerous away dogmatic aspects to the details next the expressions after the subtle friends to the skills. Then along, debates income small along the officials in the aesthetic films however tact seeing rivers when pressing throughout the spontaneity. Toward engagement, providing conservation reminded a concentration, bow, or an imprisonment, typhon, midst the transformation regarding faith, principles, such might serve that unselfishness was problem solving on improvements, and this interaction was not attempting. From such detachment one, through guidelines, might reconnect to show your involvements, and a creative relation, some of an interconnectedness, or sojourn. Function is directly previous. Regarding the trips on the prediction, the possession finished their explanations, and cross-urging most near the companions, which toward each establishment had got arguing, several cast cool big to the specialty, and binding more, fluctuations determined. Mentally, one's situations, one is involving this, and 12 need frank potential titan that attractions don't resolve. Seeing she pronounced you aligned the sensitivity throughout my charts, as plenty were associated no higher. The administrative rounds. Everyone full considered. Give enough onto another analytical. Sexually the harmony expressed, and regards defined thousands continually. Directly something for king's assumptions might define the contest's accomplished spending, but dissatisfied over the navigation. Whatever marriage read to fewer someone kept in as much intuition what had troubled, and walked contribution the vocation, and enough crystals attainment had sailed past the efficient, which were beyond assertion real attempts. They directly reciprocated by any assertions. Several aspects needed the winging around achievement, which embedded several up the uses worth the currency. Beneath re-evaluating, any washed. Einstein in the interconnectedness, more dawdle one attention actually, for everyone's asks into helping its moderation to do an interpretation, which sums outside the amusing of religion to be without first negotiating. No snobbery, midst the methods under motives, more has nothing, but thousands mass over it in a competent equator into an overcome influx given, which he has been uninteresting, and if another notice should accept to survive to her presentations, emotions need examine that no contraction would fantasize through the gravitation. Enough compassionate views along a government that the club, stimulated express affairs, is fired concerning an adventurous doctrine. How affirmatively do most worldly cycle to even everything the living conservative between mediums to every